You don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion new single, my hate it up and better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Deku Enters Hazbinhotel. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of maxx69 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. After the doors closed, the elevator slowly began to move upwards, taking our young overlord to the exact floor he had to go. A few minutes passed, and with a tinkling sound, the elevator arrived on the 9th floor, opening its doors once stopping in its moving, and allowing our hero to step out of it. Once the doors opened completely, Shadow came out of his hideout instantly and exited the elevator, looking around left and right on the current floor they were on. He was quickly followed by his master, who, after getting out of the elevator, looked around the place he was in. Izuku found himself in the middle of a hallway and in front of a door that had the number 71 on it. The hallway didn't have anything special in its look. It obtained the same red walls, the same lamps, the same golden-colored circus silhouettes on the walls, and the same dark red-colored wooden doors with numbers on them that the rest of the hotel acquired. As he and Shadow observed the hallway, both of them noticed that the doors on the left side had smaller numbers, while the numbers on the doors on the right side were higher. Recognizing this pattern, Shadow flew in the direction that was at the right as fast as he could, thinking that if he followed the rising numbers on the doors, it could lead him and his master to the room of the Princess of Hell. "Shadow, wait!" Izuku exclaimed as his shadowy friend levitated away, running after him in order to not lose sight of him. Fortunately for Izuku, this chase was shortly cut short when Shadow suddenly stopped in his tracks, positioning his pitch-black body in front of a dark red wooden door. Once reaching the location of his shadowy friend, Izuku finished his fast movement, and after he drew his breath, he moved his head to the left and observed the door Shadow was looking at. And when he did, he understood why his shadowy companion moved away from his side that suddenly. He wanted to help his master find their destination. Why, would you ask? Because, my dear reader, on the surface of the door, Izuku saw the number 84 carved into it, indicating that they were in front of the entrance of the room that separated him from the Princess of Hell. When our young Cambion came to this realization, he lifted his right arm and attempted to open the door. But before he did that, he politely knocked on the door a couple of times with his right hand, just to let his coming known for the princess. After a little of waiting, he repeated the same act, hoping that he could maybe the attention of the princess. But unfortunately for him, no answer was received from the other side of the room. With nothing else left to do, he decided to face the inevitable and grabbed the handle of the door, pushing it down and unlocking the door, thus offering himself and his shadowy friend access to it and taking a look at it. The room didn't have anything out of the ordinary. It was just a normal hotel room, with red walls and an ordinary double bed on the left side, which was standing horizontally to the wall that had the entrance door and was obtaining a small, dark red wooden cabinet at each side, with the cabinets having fancy lamps on them. At the right side of the room, a TV stand cabinet was placed, with a flat-screen television being set at the top of it. The last piece of furniture in the room was a closed, large, wooden wardrobe at the right side of the entrance, offering a place for the clothes of future clients. Finally, the wall furthest away from our protagonist had a large, goldish glassed window with a red curtain and a goldish glass door, which was slightly open, allowing the wind to come inside and blow the curtain. Thinking that the princess might be at the other side, Izuku stepped forward and approached the door, while Shadow looked around the room with curiousness. As our hero got nearer and nearer to the door, his auditory organs got the attention of a strange sound. It sounded like sobbing, and it was coming from the other side of the door. So, once he reached the door, he decided to peek outside in order to know the person who the source of the sound was. And when Izuku peeked outside, he found both the source of the sobbing and the demon woman he was looking for, the Princess of Hell. As usual, her attire didn't change much, consisting of the same set of clothes she wore on the day Izuku met her for the first time. She was standing at the edge of the balcony, leaning on the gold-colored handrail with both of her forearms and having small tears of sadness stream down her red cheeks, although Izuku didn't see that due to her not facing him and observing the ground from the balcony. Witnessing the Princess of Hell in front of his eyes, the request of his father came into his mind, and in order to accomplish that, he had to open his sharp-teethed mouth to make his presence known, and thus gain the princess's attention. Your Highness," Izuku said, causing Charlie to turn around in surprise and look at the person who was speaking to her. "Oh, it's you, Izuku, right?" Charlie questioned as she wiped the remaining tears away from her eyes with her left hand. "Yes, it's me," our young overlord confirmed as he opened the door and got out to the balcony, while Shadow finally got up to his master. "Sorry for interrupting you, Your Majesty, but I must inform you that my dad wants to speak with you about the hotel advertisement," he explained as he tried to be as formal as he could despite his nervousness and stutterer voice. When Izuku told her the reason for him being in front of her, Charlotte widened her eyes a little bit in surprise as she was reminded of the meeting she and Alastor talked about the previous day. How could she forget? To be honest, she didn't know how that happened at all, but it didn't matter. What really mattered was that it was finally the time to adjust something about the hotel that was crucial to accomplishing her dream. So, with a small, yet forced, he looked into Izuku's eyes and opened her mouth for an answer. "Oh, right, I almost forgot about it. Tell him that I'll be there in a minute. Thanks for reminding, Izuku." The Princess of Hell remercied as he observed Izuku with her forced smile. "You're welcome, Your Highness," Izuku replied with his own awkward smile as he witnessed Charlie and her fake smile. With this, Charlie thought that Izuku was going to go back to the lobby to do whatever he wanted, ending this conversation between them and making Izuku think that she was completely okay, thus not showing that she was not in the best mood. But she couldn't be further from the truth, because at the moment she formed her smile, Izuku instantly saw through. He immediately realized that she was smiling not because of her current mood, but in order to hide her true emotions. And Izuku knew all of this for one single reason. It was the same type of smile he performed to his loved ones when he tried to lie about his nightmares or about being bullied in school. And, although it was not his business, he had to know why the Princess of Hell was sad in the first place. After all, if he couldn't help a single person, more importantly, the third most high-ranked demon in Hell and his future ruler, how could he be and call himself a hero? So, after he gathered as much courage as he was capable of, he asked the inevitable question. "Is there a problem, Your Highness?" he inquired with noticeable anxiety in his voice. "What? No, of course not," Charlie assured as she waved with her right hand in an attempt to show that he was worried for no reason, trying to keep the truth out of sight. "Why would you think that?" "Because your skin under your eyes is a little bit darker and you were crying when I saw you," Izuku pointed out while Shadow nodded with his head several, sharing his master's opinion. At that moment, Charlie knew that her disguise was no more, making her smile disappear in an instant and letting out a small sigh after that. "You're a great observer just like your father, aren't you?" she questioned with a now more saddened tone. "I didn't mean to be rude. I just saw that you were sad and I wanted to help," our protagonist stuttered as he waved with his hands incoherently, totally freaking out in the process. "I'm sorry if it's my fault that you're upset, Your Highness," he apologized as he proceeded to perform a 90-degree bow. "No, it's not your fault," Princess Charlotte clarified, reassuring the son of the radio demon. "It's just that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this," she stated woefully as turned back to her original posture and continued to observe the ground below her feet sadly. "What do you mean, Princess?" Izuku wondered as he and Shadow approached Charlie, with the former forming the same position she acquired by leaning on the handrail with his forearms when he got next to her. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do with all of this. My dream, the hotel, everything," Charlie explained, then continued. "I've faced criticism after criticism for my plans, but I didn't let them affect me. And now, with your father's help, there might be finally a chance to accomplish it. But even with that," she said as her eyes began to become watery once again, "it doesn't matter how hard I try, I can't make progress, and I can't handle it. I just want to save them, but none of them sees that. They just laugh into my face and don't care about it. It's completely hopeless," the Princess of Hell confessed desperately as dozens of tears left her eyes and fell on the faraway ground below her and Izuku's feet. But why don't you ask your father to help? I'm sure that he could help you out," Izuku advised as he tried to hold back his own tears of sadness while he witnessed how upset Charlie was. "Well, to be honest, he's not very supportive of my plan," she explained, then placed her forearms back on the handrail. He thinks that it's pointless and wants me to fail," she stated woefully as she remembered back to the words her father told to her when she showed her plan to him. Izuku couldn't help but feel sorry for Charlie. He knew how it felt to be looked at as a weakling nobody by the ones who thought this, like a certain explosive teenager, but he could have never imagined how hard for her to endure that level of harassment and being treated as a joke and a failure by everyone, even by her loved ones. And despite all of this, she stayed determined and never gave up her dream. And for that, this made our young Cambion respect her even more. But now, it appeared like the ice had finally broke, and she gave in all those filthy remarks and mocking, causing her to be in the state she was in at the moment. And due to this, Izuku felt that it was his task, no, his duty, to cheer up the Princess of Hell and show her that not all hope is lost. And he exactly knew how he was going to do it. He's going to do it by telling her something he told to no one, not even his own father. He had to do it. For the princess's sake. So, with a plan in his mind, and after preparing himself mentally, he was ready to begin his mission. Your Majesty," Izuku started nervously, making Charlie focus her attention on him. "Permission to speak freely." "Sure, but why would you ask for such a thing?" Charlie wondered in confusion. "It's just that, since your highness is royalty, I thought that it would be necessary to ask for your permission before I could give my true thoughts," our dear heroine explained anxiously as he moved his hands in front of his body inconsistently. "Permission accepted." Charlie giggled, not being able to resist a tiny smile form on her face by Izuku's reaction and reasoning. "Thank you, your highness," Izuku remercied, calming down a bit, moving back into his previous position and looking at the view of Pentagram City. "Well, you should know that my dad told me everything about your plan," he started while Charlie's small smile disappeared almost instantly and she made herself mentally prepared for the next bad comment. "And, to be honest, I was surprised at first. I mean, redeeming sinners in hell? No one did it before. I can't imagine how much backlash you got," Izuku noted, while Charlie felt like she was down in the dumpster more and more, already knowing what he was going to say, which was the same thing all of the sinners told to her. "But then, I realized something. With this, I can save my loved ones," Izuku explained, catching Charlie off guard and making her look at him in surprise. "Because, in my opinion, even inside the most evil and filthy demon, there's even just one tiny glimpse of good, such as my dad. I know he did really awful things to people in both his life and afterlife, and I'll never agree with his actions," he said as Charlie slowly began to straighten her posture. "But he took care of me, helped me, protected me, taught me how to play on the saxophone, taught me how to sing with the help of Miss Mimsy, and taught me how to play on the piano with the help of Miss Rosie," our protagonist listed as he remembered back to all those great and wonderful moments. "And now, he, Auntie Nifty, and Uncle Husk are teaching me new things to help me accomplish my dream of becoming a hero. They did and do so many things for me, and I don't know how to repay them. So the only thing I can do for them is that I protect them with all of my strength from anything, especially from being killed on the extermination day. I saw what those things are capable of only once, and I don't wish that for anyone," he told to the Princess of Hell as he sadly lowered his ears and tail, and Charlie straightened her body fully. "And that's why," Izuku said, raising his ears and tail, standing up from his forward-leaning posture, turning his body in the direction of Princess Charlotte, and clenching his hands into fists. "I want to help you achieve your plan, to save the ones I love and ensure their safety forever," he finished with determination in his voice as he looked into Charlie's eyes. Charlie couldn't believe what she had just heard. First, she thought this would only be a bluff to fill her mind with fake hope and be treated as a joke at the end by Izuku as well. But, as shocking as it was, this was not the case. All of these words he said were full of honesty and were the truth. He truly believed in her cause and genuinely wanted her to succeed. She didn't notice it, but all of these things resulted in her forming new tears in her eyes. But these were not the tears of sadness. In fact, these were the tears of true happiness. But, as usual, this didn't stop our young overlord from immediately becoming panicked once he saw those tears. "What wrong, Your Majesty? Why are you crying?" Izuku queried panically. "Is it because of me? Did I say something bad or—" he continued, but he was interrupted by something no one ever could have expected. At that moment, Charlie moved forward and embraced Izuku with her hug, causing our dear heroine's face to light up and turn as red as a tomato in an instant. "Your Highness." "Thank you." The Princess of Hell remercied happily as she hugged Izuku tightly with a big smile on her face and tears of joy rolled down her cheeks. Once he heard this, Izuku knew that his mission was a success. With this, although he thought it over a million times if he should do it or not, he slowly lifted his arms and shared his own hug with Charlie. Once witnessing this adorable moment, Shadow, who observed the whole conversation between the two, couldn't resist leaving himself out of their hug. So, in an instant, he extended his pitch-black body and wrapped it around his master and his master's future ruler, bringing them closer, breaking their hug, and catching them off guard. When both of them looked at the culprit, the Princess of Hell morphed her previous smile of gladness on her face, raised her hands, and gently touched Shadow's pitch-black cheeks, and began to squeeze them. All the while Shadow enjoyed this pleasure, and Izuku observed all of this with relief, being sure that the princess was back to her true, everyday, sweet personality. After the wholesome interaction between the Princess of Hell and Izuku's shadowy friend ended, Charlie turned her head and focused her attention back on our young Cambion, now happier than ever. "Now, let's go, Izuku. Let's not make Al wait," Charlie pointed out as she headed towards the door that separated the balcony and the room. "Oh, I almost forgot. Thank you for reminding me, Your Highness," Izuku thanked, following Charlie in her tracks with Shadow. "I've already told you. Just call me Charlie," she reminded him kindly as they entered the room and walked towards its exit. "Oh, right. Sorry," Izuku apologized as scratched the back of his head and they got to the door. "Thank you for reminding me, Charlie." "You're welcome, Izuku," she replied, opening the door in the process, allowing themselves to step out of it. Once all three of them were out of the room, Charlie closed the door and with a swift turn to the right, she locked it with the key she had in her pocket. Then, after finishing this, the trio made their way in the direction of the elevator. They were at the midway of their journey, when something that Izuku had mentioned previously came into Charlie's mind, and due to her curiosity, it caused her to ask our hero about it. "By the way, you said you know that your dad did a lot of bad things to humans and demons alike. How did you find out?" she wondered as they walked towards the elevator. "Well," Izuku started as he remembered back to that day. "Why did you do that, Dad?" a 12-year-old Izuku exclaimed as he and Shadow grabbed their heads in complete panic due to what they saw. And this freak out of his was quite reasonable. Because, at that moment, Izuku was standing in the middle of Hell's one of many meat shops and was accompanied by a sheep-like female demon, who was sitting and crying next to the counter, and by his father, who was standing over the gutted-out, teared-apart corpse of a boar-like male sinner who he killed not long ago with his well-known smile, which covered his disdain towards the demon he had just put out of his afterlife. "You killed him." "Oh, come now, my boy. There's no need for panic. I just ended his miserable life to save this charming lady from the disgusting AC he wished to perform with her," Alastor explained as he observed his son, referring to the sheep-like sinner and to the fact that the butcher tried to rape her. "Besides, he's not the only man I've put back to their place. You could say I'm a hero at this point. Ahahaha." The radio demon laughed as he remembered all the kills he committed. "What?" Izuku questioned with absolute shock as he heard what his father said. "It's complicated," our protagonist stated as they got to the door of the elevator and he pushed a button down on the console, causing the doors to open and allowing all three of them to access the elevator. "I see," Charlie answered as they went inside the elevator, with her stepping inside first due to Izuku letting her go inside first, and she pushed the button that would bring them to the lobby, and thus to the lobby. Shortly after the button was pushed, the well-known tinkling was let out, the doors closed, and the elevator began to descend, making its way towards its destination. At the middle of their journey, Charlie moved her head and looked at our dear heroine and his shadowy friend, and opened her mouth to speak. Izuku," Charlie said, gaining our young overlord's and his shadow companion's attention. "I know I already said it, but thank you for everything you said. It means a lot." You don't have to say thank you, Charlie. I just wanted to cheer you up, Izuku remarked, then continued. You know what my dad says, you're never fully dressed without a smile, he said, quoting his father's favorite line and forming a big smile while putting his index fingers under his mouth and his thumbs on his cheeks, mimicking a bigger smile. Right. Charlie laughed slightly, giggling at Izuku's mimicking. I guess he's right in that. She admitted right at the moment when the doors of the elevator opened with the same tinkling sound, making all three of them look in the direction of the open doors and allowing Princess Charlotte, Izuku, and Shadow to exit it. As they left the elevator behind and looked around the lobby, Izuku noticed that not much had changed since he left. His aunt was still cleaning the furniture, Kiki was still sleeping at the table, and Vaggie was still arguing with Angel. But there was a key difference. There was an extra demon in the lobby. His father, the radio demon, was present in the room, keeping his hands behind his back and observing the argument between the moth and the spider demon with his iconic smile and absolute delight. But when he heard his son's and the princess's footsteps, his smile immediately widened. My dear boy, Alastor exclaimed as he approached the trio, it appears to me that you found Princess Charlotte successfully. So tell me, how was your time with her? It was good. Right, Charlie? Our young Cambion wondered as he observed and Shadow observed the princess. Yes, it was good, Charlie responded, sharing Izuku's opinion. Seeing this, Alastor's smile widened even more for a short amount of time, knowing that his plan to bring his son and the Princess of Hell closer was successful. That's good to hear, he noted, then reminded himself of something important. Oh, by the way, my boy, I advise that you should go back to your dear uncle as quick as you can before he, in his words, kicks your ass. Al added, making Izuku gulp a little bit of saliva down on his throat in worry and nervosity. Looks like the both of us have things to do, Charlie remarked kindly. All right, wish me luck, Charlie, he requested, then ran off in the direction of the entrance of the backyard of the hotel with Shadow by his side. I will, Charlie exclaimed as she waved at him with her right hand, saying a temporary goodbye to him. With this, both of them went on doing their own things, with our protagonist continuing his training and Charlie stopping the argument between her girlfriend and her first client and having that meeting where she discussed the advertisement of the hotel, thus not having a chance to see each other again. However, this farewell was short-lived. In the middle of Izuku's training, everyone, besides Kiki and Sirpentious, who was probably in his airship all this time, came outside to the backyard and watched Izuku spar with Husk for their own reasons, while Charlie cheered for Izuku constantly. Come on, Izuku, you can do it, Charlie cheered as she watched Izuku spar with his uncle. Come on, Husky Poo, kick his ass, Angel cheered as well, causing Husk to roll his eyes and make a tiny, tiny blush appear on his face. This little distraction allowed Izuku to have a chance against his uncle. He raised his right arm and struck with his right hand, performing a palm strike. This was unsuccessful, however, with Husk tilting his head to the left. Then Izuku crouched down, lifted his left leg, turned in his crouch as he straightened his left leg, and swept Husk's legs away, just like his uncle did to him this morning, catching him by surprise and causing him to lose his balance, thus making fall on the green grassed ground and surprising everyone. Husky Poo, Angel shouted in a saddened manner as he watched the love of his life fall on the hard ground, hitting himself in the process. Oh my god, uncle, are you all right? Izuku inquired in panic as he observed his uncle. I didn't want to hurt you, I thought you could notice it and... He continued, but was stopped in the middle of his sentence by his uncle. Not bad, kid. Looks like this training does worth it, Husk noted as he stood up from the ground and an actual smile of satisfaction appeared on his face. You're now ready for level 2. Prepare yourself, kid, because, at the end of this, you will fucking sweat blood, he advised with a smug on his face as Izuku gulped a bit of saliva on his throat scaredly, fearing what his uncle planned for him. Oui, monsieur, Izuku replied, then continued to spar with Husk more intensively, while Charlie and Angel went on with their cheering, and Alastor and Niffty observed Izuku with a smile on their faces, with the former performing it with pride, being proud of his son for him practicing well and learning fast. The only one who was not smiling was not other than Vaggie. She didn't have a reason to cheer for Izuku. Moreover, Her suspicion towards him only rose due to her girlfriend's sudden behavior change towards him. She didn't know what he did to her for her acting like this, but if he did something to her, she will find it out, and if it was something bad to Charlie, she will make Izuku pay for it, one way or another. It has been 3 months since Izuku had that conversation with Princess Charlotte. During these months, he assisted Charlie with the advertisement of her hotel as much as he could, even putting out posters of it, which were made by the Princess of Hell herself, on the streets of Pentagram City, trying to gain the attention of any sinner who was interested in redemption. But as usual, no one gave a damn about the princess's cause. Nevertheless, this help Izuku provided for Charlie made him and her become closer to one another, resulting in them becoming friends even with Vaggie, of course, not being too fond of this newly found friendship. He also became more muscular and stronger physically thanks to his uncle's more intense training. However, this was not the only type of training he did. He had 2 other types of practice going on as well. And, although they were not as hard and sweaty as the one he did with Husk, they were still important for his future. And, on that particular Saturday afternoon, this was what Izuku exactly did. At that moment, Izuku, who was wearing his usual green attire that was similar to the one his father possessed, was in hell, more precisely, inside his own hotel room that his father showed him on the first day he came to the hotel. His hotel room was on the first floor and didn't have anything special in it. It had dark red walls, a dark red wooden door that acted as both the entrance and the exit of the room, a double bed that was standing horizontally to the wall that obtained the entrance, and a dark red television cabinet with a flat-screen TV on it. It also acquired a dark red wooden wardrobe at the right side of the door, with Izuku only using it to store his pajamas and other clothes inside it for the weekends he spent in hell with his demonic relatives and friends, a small red cabinet with a simple lamp on it at the right side of the bed, and finally, a desk at the left side of the bed that was standing vertically to the bed and obtained a chair, a desk lamp on its surface at the left side, shelf with a bunch of voodoo-related and not voodoo-related books on the wall above it, with the addition of an All Might poster between the shelf and the desk, probably put there by Izuku himself. This was the type of furniture that our protagonist was located and was sitting in front of at that moment. And he was not alone. Positioning herself on the table, Izuku's aunt, Niffty, was observing how he was handling the needle in his hands and how he was sewing the open part of a regular small voodoo doll that the radio demon gave to him to practice on, while Shadow shared the act she was doing. This kind of training may sound strange at first, but there was a really important reason behind it. Because, with Izuku learning how to sew, he could easily treat his and other people's deeper wounds and close them without a hitch. That's right. In our young overlord's 10 months of training, Nifty's role was not other than teaching some basic medical treatment to her nephew in order to make him capable of helping out and healing others and himself. Since Niffty lived and worked in the 1950s as a maid, she needed to know how to do these types of things. That's why she was the perfect demon for this purpose in the first place. And, to be honest, the training was going very well. She taught Izuku how to treat and clean wounds properly, how to take care of a broken arm or leg, how to treat a head injury, you name it. And now, it was finally the time for Izuku to learn how to seal a wound. Try to sew it up as much as you can. We don't want our patient's wound to get infected, she advised as Izuku got closer to seal the hole, with it getting smaller and smaller. Got it, Izuku answered smilingly as he sewed up the hole almost completely. Shortly after, with a few stitches, our protagonist closed the hole fully, thus not allowing its inside made out of hay to be seen. And done. Great job, Izuku. Now comes the last part, Niffty said, reminding her nephew of a crucial part. Right, Izuku replied, then put down the needle on the right side of the desk with his right hand, stood up from his chair, extended his right arm, and grabbed his own red voodoo book his father gave to him years ago with his left hand, pulling it out of the group of the books that were on the shelf. After that, he placed the book down on the left side of the desk, opened the book to a certain page, and grabbed the needle with his right hand once again. Then, he observed the book again in order to check if he was on the right page or not. Shortly after that, he looked at the needle in his hand, straightened his right index finger, and with a sigh that he did to calm down and to ready himself, he pierced his right index with the needle, causing a droplet of red-colored blood to come out of his finger. Although it was a little bit painful, Izuku bore it without a hitch. As he observed the tiny droplet of blood on his finger, Izuku looked at the book once again and checked the right symbol he needed. Then, he focused his attention back on the doll, moved his right hand towards it, and touched it with his right index finger, beginning to draw the symbol he needed on the closed hole of the doll. After he drew the symbol fully, he took his finger away from the doll and placed his open-palmed right hand above the doll. Izuku closed his eyes, opened his mouth, and said the word he had to. Loco. He chanted as he concentrated on his voodoo magic. At the moment he said this word out loud, the symbol began to emit a bright, light green light, while Izuku pulled his hand away and the sewed-up hole began to disappear. Some seconds later, the sewed-up hole vanished completely, like it was never there, with the symbol's light fading away and the symbol disappearing as well. Nice job, Izuku. Niffty congratulated as Izuku pulled his hand away from the doll and opened his eyes, observing his aunt with them in the process. Let's take a break now, okay? Niffty suggested joyfully. Okay, Izuku replied as he leaned back in his chair and stretched his arms into the air, all the while his aunt tried to climb down from the desk as safely as she could. Seeing this, our young Cambion quickly extended his hands towards Niffty and grabbed her under her armpits, placing her on the floor carefully. Thank you, Izuku, she murmured as she observed her nephew. Now, do whatever you want, Izuku. In the meantime, I will clean your room and wash your pajamas, Niffty stated, then got her duster out of her right pocket with her right hand and began to walk towards the TV cabinet, starting to clean it once she reached it. Oh, you don't have to do that, Auntie. I will handle it, Izuku insisted happily, making Niffty stop her cleaning and focus her attention on Izuku. Oh, come on, Izuku. I know you want to be a hero and want to help everyone and all, but please, don't have to strain yourself that much. The most important thing for you now is to focus on your training. The female cockroach demon responded kindly, knowing well that her nephew just wanted to help her as much as he could. Let your aunt do the work for you. Izuku couldn't resist forming a smile on his face after he heard this statement from his aunt. He knew that his aunt always did these types of things and she enjoyed doing them. But he couldn't help wanting to assist her in her job by doing these things that were applied to him, such as cleaning his room and washing his pajamas and clothes by himself, thus sparing some extra work from her and letting her rest at least a little bit. But he also knew that it didn't matter how much he tried, he could never convince his aunt of this, with her always telling him it was her duty to help the residents, and more importantly, her nephew, in anything she could. Not to mention the fact that Izuku knew that due to the time she lived in, Niffty only felt herself useful when she had something to do. So, with a defeated sigh which was accompanied by a smile, our protagonist opened his mouth and let his answer known. Fine. I let you clean my room and clothes, Auntie. Izuku responded as he stood up from his seat. I'll go and check what Charlie's doing. I'll check if she needs help, he said excitedly as he imagined himself helping his royal friend, making his aunt smile and roll her one single roll playfully at his sweet personality. Do as you wish, Izuku. I let you know when your break is over, okay? Niffty wondered as our young overlord walked to the door of his room and grabbed its handle, with him being followed by his shadowy friend. Okay, see you soon, Auntie, Izuku told as he opened the door and, accompanied by Shadow, he moved forward and stepped out of the room, thus leaving his aunt in his room alone. Bye, Izuku, Niffty answered, saying goodbye to her nephew, then went on to continue the cleaning of the TV cabinet. But as she began it more properly, a new and really sweet idea appeared in her mind, causing her to shout after her nephew in the hope that she could tell him her idea before he got too far. Izuku. Yes, Auntie? Izuku inquired as he and Shadow tilted their heads to the left and peeked inside the room, making it possible for them to look back at Niffty. For your good training so far, I'll make muffins for everyone. It will be your favorite, Niffty announced, making her nephew's eyes light up. It will be hellfire muffins? He questioned with the excitement of a small child, and he was like this for a good reason. In hell, hellfire muffins were renowned for their delicious taste and for the fact that they never became cold. They always stayed fresh and tasty. Not to mention that the muffins his aunt made were somehow the most delicious ones in all of hell. So, with this information in his mind, he already knew that everyone in the hotel would love the muffins. Meanwhile, Niffty just smiled at Izuku's reaction. Yes, it will be hellfire muffins. the cockroach female sinner confirmed, making Izuku's smile widen. Now, go. Enjoy your break, she remarked as she continued to clean the TV cabinet with her duster. Okay, I'll let Charlie know about the muffins, our protagonist noted, then continued. Goodbye, Auntie, he said, moving his head back to the original position and beginning to close the door in front of him. Bye, Izuku, Niffty answered, just before our young cambion closed the door completely, thus leaving her alone in the room. With this information in his head and with Shadow by his side, Izuku turned to the right and began to walk through the red-walled hallway, going in the direction of the lobby. As he got closer and closer, his auditory organs noticed the sound. It sounded like arguing, and judging by how loud it was, it seemed to be a heated one. And it came from the direction the lobby was. So, after hearing the sound of the argument, he increased his walking speed a little bit in order to get to the lobby as fast as he could, thinking that it was Miss Vaggie who was arguing with someone, probably with Angel. After 2 minutes of walking, our young overlord and his shadowy companion finally arrived at the lobby, gaining a glimpse of the situation that was unfolding there. And when Izuku saw it, he widened his eyes in surprise at what he and Shadow witnessed. It was not a big surprise for him to see that his uncle and Kiki didn't care much about the whole argument, with the former just drinking his booze as casually as ever and the latter sleeping on the table, while Charlie attempted to separate the arguing demons and his father observed the situation with absolute delight and with his iconic wide smile on his face. The big surprise for Izuku was that it was not Miss Vaggie who was having an argument. In fact, at that moment, she was trying to help her girlfriend separate the arguing demons, pointing her holy spear at one of the arguing sinners. Out of all the demons in the pits of hell, it was Sirpentious who was arguing with 2 other demons, one of the demons being Angel, just as Izuku imagined. As he was told by his royal friend, Sirpentious attacked the hotel in order to take revenge on Angel for him and a friend of his stopping his great plan of conquering the west side of Pentagram City. Fortunately, he was quickly stopped in this act of his by our dear hero's father, who damaged Pen's airship so much that Sirpentious couldn't control it, resulting in him crashing his airship into the hotel and getting it stuck in it. Without his airship functioning properly, and it being stuck completely, Sirpentious and his helpers, the Egg Boys, had nowhere to go. Due to this, Charlie was so nice that she let him and the Egg Boys live in the hotel as long as they wanted or until the airship was taken out of the structure of the hotel fully, as Sirpentious told her. But in return, Sirpentious had to join her rehabilitation program, which, although with a little bit of force, he agreed. But, of course, Charlie couldn't make much progress due to Sirpentious's ignorance and pride, upsetting Charlie with this. As he witnessed the argument between Sirpentious and Angel, he noticed that the third demon who was arguing with Sirpen and was standing next to Angel as well was someone he had never seen in his entire life. The third demon he saw was a female Cyclops sinner. She had long pink hair with blonde and white accents that were contained in a large ponytail and wore a large amount of mascara. Her only eye obtained a bloodshot pink-colored sclea and a pale yellow X-shaped pupil. Her skin was mostly white, with pink freckles decorating her face and right shoulder. She also acquired tattoos along her right arm that appeared to be bombs and explosions. The demon woman's attire consisted of a gray, fingerless satin glove on her left hand, a red off-shoulder crop top, a black bra, a reddish, torn-up miniskirt with 2 buttons on the front with 1 loose suspender, and ripped black leggings underneath. The last part of her clothing appeared to be a red and white boot on her left foot, while on her right foot she had a pointed red shoe, and as it seemed, she was at Angel's side in the argument. After observing the whole situation, Izuku entered the lobby and with Shadow following him from behind, he walked towards the group and positioned himself at his father's right side. Once next to him, Izuku opened his mouth and let his presence known to his father. "Hi, Dad," our young cambion said, getting his father's attention and causing him to turn his head to the right. "Izuku, my dear boy, it is so delightful for me to see you once again on this day," Alastor greeted, then went on with his speech. "Judging by you being, it appears to me that you're having a break at the moment. Tell me, how does your training go with that voodoo doll I gave you to practice on? Can you use it more easily? Does your dear aunt assist you well in your training?" he queried with curiosity and actual fatherly care. "Well, it goes pretty great. Auntie always tries to help me in my training as best as she can, and I can use my healing voodoo magic on the doll really well. I just need to memorize some symbols and their effects, and the type of medical treatments a little bit better." Izuku explained, making his father's smile widen upon hearing this. "That's good to hear," the radio demon remarked with proudness. "Guys, that's enough," Charlie exclaimed, causing our dear heroine, his shadowy friend, and his father to move their heads in the direction of the Princess of Hell in surprise. "There's no need for this drama. Then tell this uneducated Mrs. E to go fornicate herself and leave me alone," Sirpentious hissed angrily, opening his cobra hood wide in anger, revealing 2 pairs of eyes with red scleres and black, narrow pupils on them, with his hat sharing the same expression with its owner. "Dream about it, old man, because that never gonna fucking happen," the female demon declared with a smug. "Damn right, Beach," Angel added, raising his upper left hand, forming it into a fist, and fist bumping with his friend, with her doing it with her right hand. "Now, go back to your shitty airship and get lost with your wrecked inventions, you fucking failure," the Cyclops demon expressed. "You know what? Fine, I will do that, but not because you and my son told me so," the wannabe overlord stated, then closed his cobra hood, turned around, and slithered towards the elevator that was in the lobby, passing by our dear hero and looking at him from the corner of his red eyes. "I'm not your goddamn son," the famous gay porn star shouted. "It was just a sex joke, you fucking idiot. A effing sex joke," he said frustratedly as the golden-colored doors of the elevator opened with a tinkling and Sirpentious entered the elevator and pushed the up button with his left hand, resulting in the closing of doors, which was accompanied by the same tinkling sound, and the beginning of the journey of the elevator upwards, taking Sirpentious to the floor he desired to go, asshole. After Sirpentious vanished from sight completely, Charlie let out a sigh of relief and tiredness and looked at the ground in sadness. "Why does it always have to come to this? Could it be that he can't change because I don't help him enough?" she questioned with sadness in her voice. "Of course not, hun. You always try to help him as much as you can," Vaggie solaced her girlfriend, resting her right hand on Charlie's left shoulder in a comforting manner while holding her spear in her left hand. "You know he can't be helped. I told you on the first day he came to the hotel," she reminded her girlfriend. I know, but," the Princess of Hell started. "You know I just want to help everyone here, including him. Is it that hard to notice?" she wondered as she crossed her arms and went on observing the red floor with an upset look on her face, while Vaggie continued to comfort her with pity. Seeing how upset his royal friend was, with slightly flattened ears and tail, our young Cambion stepped forward, and with Shadow by his side, he approached the Princess of Hell. Charlie," Izuku started, getting the attention of the princess and her girlfriend, with the latter becoming alerted immediately and looking at him with a serious expression on her face. Are you all right?" he inquired worriedly. "Oh, hi, Izuku," Charlie greeted her young overlord friend, forming a tiny smile of nervosity on her face. "Yes, I'm fine, don't worry. I'm just a little bit drained out after this argument," Princess Charlotte assured, proceeding to ensure her young friend that she was all right. "Why? What happened?" Izuku queried anxiously due to Miss Vaggie's presence. "Well," Charlie began, but was quickly stopped by not other than her girlfriend. "You have nothing to do with that," Vaggie declared with a little bit of frustration, raising her right hand from Charlie's shoulder and pointing at our dear hero with her right index finger, not losing any of her hate towards the son of the radio demon, scaring him slightly with her attitude. "Vaggie, we've been over this," Charlie responded, placing her left hand on her girlfriend's right shoulder. "You know he wouldn't hurt me or do anything like that to me. He's my friend," Charlie noted, turning her head and looking at Izuku with a genuine smile on her face, with Izuku sharing the same expression once he saw her smile, although with a little bit of nervosity. "Fine," the moth-based female sinner answered grumpily, not satisfied with her reply. "Thank you," the Princess of Hell remercied, then focused her full attention on her friend. "Well, we were trying to convince Pen about participating in his treatment in order to get him rehabilitated, when Angel came back from outside to the hotel with his friend. When that happened, she and him noticed each other, and, well," Charlie explained, losing her smile slightly as she got to the mentioning of the argument. "You know the rest." "I see," Izuku said, lowering his ears and tail completely and feeling bad for him being incapable of helping her, making his smile disappear in the process. I'm sorry I couldn't help you, Charlie. Oh, Izuku, you don't need to say sorry. I know you had your training with Niffty and you couldn't be disturbed. Princess Charlotte reassured kindly, putting up a smile and attempting to calm down and cheer up her young overlord friend. Really? Izuku wondered nervously. Really? Charlie ensured. All right. Our young Cambion replied, calming down a little bit, then brought up the question he was eager to ask. Do you need any help now, Charlie? No, not yet, Charlie answered nicely. Are you sure? I mean, I could help you make some new posters, or... Izuku listed, but was instantly cut short by the princess's speech. Izuku, I know you always want to help me, and it's really sweet of you. But I already told you, you don't need to help me now. Charlie said, then continued. I don't want you to strain yourself too much. But Izuku began. Listen, I will let you know if need help, okay? Charlie questioned kindly, morphing her smile back to its original size due to her young friend's kindness. Okay. Our protagonist replied, forming a tiny smile on his face, lifting his ears and tail slightly, and calming down a little bit, knowing that his royal friend was now fine. Just as he said this, the statement of his aunt appeared inside his mind, reminding him to let his aunt's idea known to everyone. Oh, before I forget, for my good training, my aunt is going to bake hellfire muffins for everyone, Izuku stated now a little bit more delightedly. Really? Charlie questioned as her eyes lightened up in excitement and joyfulness. That's great. I can't wait to taste them. You should be excited, my dear. My dear Niffty is talented in almost everything, and her muffins are no exception, Alastor remarked, walking and joining the group. I assure you, her muffins are so delicious that they could raise hell, he declared, laughing at his remark while his joyful laugh was followed by the laughter of an imaginary crowd. Even one singular bite can make any demon fall in love with it. Isn't that right, my boy? The radio demon inquired from his son in an unexpected teasing manner. Yes, Izuku responded, slightly blushing and flattening his ears and tail a little bit in embarrassment. You should have seen him when he first tasted his aunt's muffin, my dear. He was so silly and wholesome back then. The radio demon noted as he remembered back to his son's younger years, making Charlie's eyes light up even more. Really? Can you tell me about it, Al? Charlie beamed excitedly, while Vaggie didn't give a shit about all of this. Charlie, Izuku exclaimed as he blushed even harder. Of course, my dear, Alastor replied delightfully. Dad, Izuku exclaimed once again as he lowered his ears and tail fully and his face turned as red as a tomato from embarrassment. Oh, come on, my boy, there's nothing to be ashamed of, the radio demon stated, then continued now, where was I? Ah, yes, the muffin eating, Alastor remembered, then began to tell the story of his son's first hellfire muffin eating experience. This situation occurred on a weekend when my dear boy was in the 4th year of his life. While my dear sweet boy was playing with his dear imp friend, Mellow, my dear Niffty and I were cleaning the dishes after our latest lunch when my dear Niffty had the brilliant idea of surprising the children with her muffins. Once we finished them, we called the children over to see what we cooked for them and asked them to take a bite from them. And oh, my dear Charlotte, when they tasted it, there was no stop. That baking tray, full of hellfire muffins, was empty in no time. They were consuming the muffins so fast that they could barely fit them into their mouths. They looked like 2 squirrels trying to fit chestnuts into their mouths. He explained happily with nostalgia, and the eyes of the Princess of Hell became starry in excitement after hearing all of this. Do you have a picture of them, Al? Charlie wondered excitedly and joyfully. As a matter of fact, I do. Care to see it, my dear? The radio demon queried. Dad, no, Izuku protested in embarrassment. Please show me the picture, Al. I must see it, Princess Charlotte demanded, incapable of holding back her excitement anymore. As you wish, my dear. Alastor responded. Then, with a flick of his right hand, he summoned a normal-sized picture into his right hand, observing the picture in hand. With her magical electronic device, somehow, my dear Niffty could print it out the picture she made into a physical form. The radio demon remarked, extending his right hand towards Charlie and offering her the picture, with the princess taking it out of his hand in no time. Once the picture was in her hands, Charlie grabbed it with both of her hands and observed it closely, with Vaggie joining her girlfriend's act in order to check that she was not looking at something suspicious. And when they looked at the picture, both of them were shocked by what they saw on it. It was way cuter than Charlie expected. Even Vaggie, who hated Izuku's guts very much, admitted in her head that Izuku a tiny bit, just a tiny bit, was cute in that picture. Why, would you ask? Because, in that picture, they could see a much younger, 4-year-old Izuku, who wearing the same green clothes he had in a much smaller size, sitting in a dining room at a dark red-colored, wooden dinner table in front of an almost empty baking pan and being in the middle of eating a bunch of hellfire muffins, while a much smaller, younger shadow his young master in his act. He was positioned next to a young imp girl, who was probably not other mellow, who had an attire that was similar to the one she wore on the day she met him, with her being considered as Izuku's friend, as the radio demon put it. Both the young imp girl and our young protagonist were looking into the camera and were sharing the same expression on their faces, having their mouths so full of muffins that they indeed looked like squirrels keeping lots of chestnuts in their mouths. As Charlie witnessed the picture, she couldn't help but smile even more by seeing how cute our young Cambion was in the picture, and soon enough, she let her opinion known. Nah, I've seen better. The moth-based female demon noted uninterestedly, with her remark going completely ignored by everyone. Ah, Izuku, you were so cute, Charlie cooed as she observed the picture. Merci, Charlie. Izuku remercied while his face still obtained its red blush. What's the matter, my boy? You appear to be quite red. Alastor noted in a teasing manner. Shall I bring you a thermometer? No, thank you, Dad, our dear hero answered. Are you certain, my boy? Because you seem quite lightened up for me, Alastor teased joyfully as he let out his well-known laugh, followed by the laughter of the same imaginary crowd. Merci, Papa, Izuku whispered ironically as he continued to blush from embarrassment. Fortunately for him, this situation was interrupted by someone he didn't expect. Wait, I know ya, the one-eyed female sinner stated as she observed Izuku, making him, his dad, his shadowy companion, Charlie, Vaggie, and Angel look at her. Me? Our protagonist questioned in confusion as his ears and tail went back to their original posture and his blush vanished from sight. Yeah, you're the demon kid Angie talked about, the radio demon's kid, Izuku, right? The female sinner queried with interest. Yes, it's me, Izuku replied, still confused by the female demon's sudden question. Let me tell ya, kid, ya have quite the reputation out there. You're literally famous for the drug-addicted shitheads at my side of town just for fucking existing. You should be proud of that, dude. The sinner declared admiringly, with Izuku sadly knowing that his reputation and famousness he was not very fond of was due to his father's past actions. Thanks, Our young overlord started, but stopped in his speech due to him not knowing the demon woman's name. Cherri, the name's Cherri. The sinner answered, referring to herself to as Cherri, and, to top it off, you earned my attention as well. Really? Izuku wondered while still being completely confused by Cherribomb's behavior. Yeah, kid, and I thought that it'd be cool to meet this kid more closely, Cherri stated, walking to Izuku and placing her right arm on her shoulder, pulling him closer to her body. So, since we're in a hotel, what do you say about getting somewhere more private to get to know each other more closely, if you know what I mean, Tilda? The self-claimed spunky powerhouse stated teasingly, making Izuku's to become as red as a fresh tomato after he understood the meaning of Cherri's words, while Angel tried to hold his laugh as he witnessed the whole situation. Dare to touch my boy like that even once, and I'll make you wish you never stepped into this hotel. Alastor warned furiously as he showed off his demonic form a little bit, turning his pupils into radio dials, speaking to Cherri without moving his mouth, making some voodoo symbols appear and float around him, and causing the area around him to become distorted. Try to do that, Al, and I fucking swear I'm gonna put some extra holes in ya, Angel alerted angrily, standing up for his friend. Guys, stop. There's no need for another argument, Charlie said worriedly as he tried to prevent Angel and the radio demon from arguing, focusing her attention on Alastor mostly. Al, calm down. I'm sure Cherri didn't mean what she said seriously. Yeah, dude, chill out. I was just jockin'. I'm not a fucking pedo, Cherri declared, removing her right arm from Izuku's shoulders and straightening her posture. Then turning her head towards Izuku and placing her left hand on her waist. "Hear that, kid? Ya can calm down now. I'm not gonna do those things to you," she assured, with Izuku settling down and letting out a sigh of relief and calmness, and with Shadow putting a supporting left hand on his master's right shoulder. "Yet?" she whispered teasingly and jokingly, making Izuku's blush return for a short amount of time and causing Shadow to look at her with an annoyed expression. "Good," the radio demon answered, not hearing Cherri's whisper and reverting back to his original form. "Now, if you excuse me, I must stop our conversation and check if my dear Niffty needs my assistance in the baking of the muffins. I hope you don't mind." Alastor wondered as he looked at his son, the Princess of Hell, and her girlfriend. "Please don't go, Alastor. It would be such a tragedy if you left," Vaggie remarked sarcastically. "Oh, Miss Vagatha, it flatters me that you don't desire for my absence," Alastor responded, keeping his well-known smile on his face while observing the moth-based female sinner, who immediately became ticked off as she heard his reply. "Of course not, Dad, it's all right," our protagonist replied cheerfully, getting back into his original personality. "Thank you for your approval, my boy." Al remercied, then continued, "I must go now. I have muffins to make," he added. Then, he turned around and with casual steps, he began his journey towards the kitchen of the hotel, while the rest of the group observed him leave. "Tell Auntie I said hi," Izuku shouted, hoping for the chance that his father heard his request. "I will, my boy," Alastor responded, letting his son know that he heard his demand, then disappearing from sight in one of the hallways. "Well, that settles it," the spider-based demon remarked, then moved his head in the direction of his friend. "Wanna check out Fat Nuggets, Cherri?" he queried as he proceeded to walk in the direction the hallway where his room was set. "Hell yeah, I haven't seen him for weeks," Cherri stated, following her friend in his tracks and soon vanishing from sight with him in the hallway, leaving the rest of the group in the lobby. Just as they left the lobby, an idea appeared inside the head of the Princess of Hell that had only one purpose: to make peace with and apologize to Sirpentious for the trouble Angel and Cherri caused him. And, in addition to this, apologizing to him for her and her girlfriend not being able to prevent the unpleasantness Angel and Cherri caused him. And what better way to do it than with some sweets? And although he maybe wouldn't eat even a single one and wouldn't accept their apology, at least they tried. So, with the plan in her mind, she placed her attention on her young overlord friend and opened her mouth in order to let her idea known. Izuku?" the Princess of Hell began, gaining the attention of her young overlord friend and her girlfriend. "Yes, Charlie?" our young Cambion inquired as he looked at his friend. "I know I just said that you don't need to assist me now, but may I ask for your help?" she wondered nervously. "Sure," Izuku answered kindly. "Would you tell Sirpentious about the muffins Niffty makes?" she requested, then went on with her speech. "Since his airship is stuck on the 6th floor, he lives on the 6th floor. You can just use the elevator to get to him. You can access his airship by going through the room 54th. She guided in detail, proceeding to help her friend to find the wannabe overlord as much as she could. "Are you sure about asking his help for this, hun?" Vaggie asked with concern. "What if he's going to make us even more trouble with Pen, or worse, he'll try to make your dream fail miserably, like his father? After all, he's the son of the radio demon," the girlfriend of Princess Charlotte stated as she observed Izuku with hatred and alarm, which mostly originated from the facts that Izuku was the son of the radio demon and Izuku always acted kinda strange around her, even when she didn't say or do anything to him. With her not knowing that Izuku's strange acting towards her was due to Izuku fearing her thanks to her appearance resembling those things Izuku was afraid of the most. This hateful gaze of hers made Izuku slightly lower his ears and tail in worry and caused Shadow to witness the moth-based female demon with anger and frustration for her upsetting his master once again. "I'm sure, Vaggie, because I know," Charlie responded to her girlfriend, then turned her head towards our dear protagonist and looked at him with a sweet smile. "Izuku would never do that. He's my friend. And friends don't do these things to each other, isn't that right, Izuku?" she wondered. "Why, yes, Charlie," Izuku answered with him being a little bit afraid due to Vaggie's hateful gaze. "Okay, fine, you can help Charlie," Vaggie replied dissatisfiedly, then raised her weapon and pointed it at our protagonist, scaring him even more. But if you try to sabotage her plan just one bit or do anything like that, I'll make sure you won't go home in one piece. Understood? She warned with a serious tone. Oui, madam. Izuku answered scaredly as he flattened his ears and tail full, while Shadow, who observed the whole situation, was ready to change into his protective form in order to defend his master from any harm Vaggie wanted to cause him. Thank you, Vaggie, the Princess of Hell remercied, thanking for the approval of her girlfriend. Although not being very fond of the words her girlfriend told to her young Cambion friend while lifting her left hand and placing her left index finger on it and pushing it downwards slowly, making Vaggie lower her holy weapon. So, what do you say, Izuku? Would you tell Sirpentious about the muffins for me? She requested with a kind smile, making both Izuku and Shadow calm down a little bit and causing our young overlord to make his ears and tail straightened once again. Of course, Charlie. Izuku responded with honesty and with the smile he had before Vaggie warned him. Thank you, Izuku, it means a lot, Charlie answered gratefully, keeping her sweet smile in the process. You're welcome, Charlie, he said, then continued, I guess I should go now. I should tell Sirpentious about the muffins as soon as possible. He finished as he turned around and walked in the direction of the elevator of the lobby, with Shadow following him from behind. Okay, good luck, Izuku, Princess Charlotte told as Izuku and Shadow got to the golden-colored doors of the elevator and our dear hero touched its calling button on the panel, making the elevator descend from the 6th floor. Thank you, Charlie, Izuku replied as the elevator arrived at the place it was called, letting its arrival known by unlocking its doors with a tinkling sound in the process. Once the doors of the elevator opened completely and our young Cambion and his shadowy friend entered the elevator, with Shadow forming back into his original shadow form and disappearing from sight, Izuku raised his right hand and began to search for the button on the elevator's panel that would bring him to the floor he needed to go. After finding the golden-colored button he needed, he pushed it down fully, making the doors of the elevator begin to close after the tinkling sound was heard. But before the doors closed fully, he lifted his right hand and performed a goodbye wave at Charlie, with her returning the nice gesture with her own wave and her smile and Vaggie witnessing him with an angry expression. And thus, the doors closed completely, causing Izuku to vanish from sight. After the doors closed shut fully, the elevator began to ascend, beginning its journey to the 6th floor, the part of the hotel our protagonist needed to go to. 2 minutes passed, and the elevator reached Izuku's destination, opening its doors with a tinkling sound and allowing our dear hero to step out of it. Once the golden-colored doors of the elevator unlocked completely, Shadow came out of his hideout and flew out of the elevator, looking left and right at the location where he and his master arrived, who followed not long after he exited the elevator. After stepping out of the elevator and looking around the area, Izuku found himself and his shadowy companion in a long hallway in front of a door that had the number 42 on it, with the hallway sharing the design and colors of the rest of the hallways inside the hotel. And as Shadow thought about it, if the hallway was the same as the rest of the hallways, it must have meant that the numbers on the surface of the doors would grow on the right side while they would decrease on the left side, like the doors on the 9th floor. Recognizing this, Shadow levitated away in the direction of the right side almost instantly in the hope of getting him and his master to the destination of their journey, making his master run after him in order to not lose sight of him due to his speed. After a few minutes, they reached the end of the hallway, with Izuku drawing a breath once he got to his shadowy friend's location, who, at that moment, was floating in front of a door. After a quick breath, Izuku looked up and observed the door he was in front of. It was a normal-sized, wooden door, obtaining a dark red color scheme, just like every other door in the hotel, with the number 54 carved into it and positioned in the middle of the door, looking like just as his royal friend described him. After recognizing the door and realizing that it was the only thing that separated him from the room where he could access the snake-based Sinner's airship, Izuku put his right hand on the door handle and moved it downwards, unlocking the door inwards, allowing himself and his shadowy companion to step inside the room and observe it. When he entered the room, Izuku set his eyes upon a scenery he didn't expect to witness. Instead of a well-made, comfortable, nice hotel room, just like every other room inside the hotel was supposed to be, this room was torn apart and half of it was completely destroyed, replaced by the part of the wannabe overlord's airship that had the entrance of the air vehicle, with a short ramp made out of metal connected to it, thus allowing anyone to approach it. After shaking off the surprise he had, with his shadowy companion next to him, Izuku walked forward, passing through the half-destroyed room, approaching the ramp and walking up on it, thus getting nearer and nearer to the entrance of the snake-based demon in the process. Once he and Shadow reached the entrance of the airship, which was a blackish, brownish-colored metal door, before grabbing the door handle with his right hand and pushing it downwards, Izuku raised his right hand and knocked on the surface of the door a few times, hoping that he could at least get Sirpentious' attention. Unfortunately for him, no answers were gotten, indicating that his knocks didn't get the wannabe overlord's attention. So, after letting out a sigh to prepare himself mentally for what was about to come, he grabbed the door handle and moved it downwards, making the door open and allowing our young overlord and his shadowy friend to step inside. Once opening the metal door wide enough, Shadow immediately flew inside in order to take a look at the insides of the place he had just entered. Shortly after, once the door was opened fully, Izuku stepped inside as well, closing the door behind him once he entered the ship completely. Then, after closing the door fully, he moved his body back to its original posture in order to observe the inside of the airship. And when he did, he widened his eyes in the mixture of shock and surprise by what he saw. The walls of the airship were made out of metal and obtained a blackish, brownish color, and scales that were painted on them as decoration, giving them a kind of snake vibe. The walls also had numerous metal gears and wheels on them, each of them owning eyes with red scleres and narrow, black pupils in the middle, which were looking at our young Cambion and his shadowy companion at that moment, waiting for the opportunity when they could begin their core function of helping to raise the ship into the air once again. Aside from the gears and wheels, the walls were covered with an almost uncountable amount of metal, black-colored pipes, tubes, and pistons too, probably being built there for the only purpose of delivering the immense amount of steam to the wheels and gears in order to make them turn, thus sharing the purpose of helping to operate the airship with the gears and the wheels as well. Little did Izuku know, the room he was in was just one section of the airship. In fact, it was a rather small one, with the room being positioned on the lower deck of the ship. The rest of the rooms inside the airship were much, much larger compared to the one he was in, and acquired much more complex machinery in them. But even this one, tiny room made our protagonist amazed. It fascinated Izuku how complex and detailed the mechanism was. How it was able to make a huge machine like this airship function and allow it to rise into the air and even fly in the sky. And, to top it off, all of this was made possible by only one demon who was called a failure by many. But for Izuku, it was the complete opposite. In fact, he respected Sirpentious for being able to plan, invent, and build such large and complex mechanisms like his airship, and how big of a genius he was because of this. As our dear hero witnessed the whole place with his shadowy companion in amazement, his auditory organs picked up a strange sound, causing him to phase out of his current state and focus his attention on the sound. It sounded like someone was welding something, and it was coming from the direction on the right. Recognizing this, both Izuku and Shadow turned their heads in the said direction, setting their eyes upon a pair of doors they didn't notice until now. The doors were made out of metal, just like every other part of the airship. Instead of sharing the color scheme with the walls and the rest of the ship, they had a light red coloration on them, showing a little bit of uniqueness and fitting to the color scheme of the airship at the same time. The places of the bottom panels and the top rail were occupied by yellow-colored glasses, with the ones on the bottom panels having brownish-blackish colored snake symbols on them, and the one on the top rail obtaining these snake symbols in its top corners as well, matching the theme and coloration of the giant machine with them, while a large yellow-colored was placed in the middle of the metal doors, each acquiring a red sclere, black, sharp-pupiled eye at the top area and 3 pair of tiny pipes at both sides. Once getting his eyes on the metal doors, Izuku noticed that one out of the 2 doors was slightly left open, indicating that the sound of welding came from the other side of the door, thus hinting that the demon who was making this sound in the first place was there as well. So, after realizing this, with Shadow by his side, he turned to the right and began to walk towards the door, hoping that when he got there, he could see the sinner he was searching for. Once reaching the door, our protagonist leaned forward and peeked inside the room, earning a glimpse of the situation that was unfolding there. Inside, the walls had blackish, brownish color and were covered with wheels, gears, pistons, tubes, and pipes, similar to the room Izuku arrived in when he entered the ship. Meanwhile, in the middle of the room, he could witness the biggest steam engine he had ever seen in his entire life. And there, he set his eyes upon the demon he was looking for. At that moment, Sirpentious was facing the steam engine of his airship and was in the middle of repairing it by welding with a 19th century styled welder while wearing his goggles on his face, which Izuku didn't see due to him showing his back to him, thus revealing that he was indeed the one who was responsible for the sound our dear hero heard, and he was not alone. Inside the room, the notable kingpin was surrounded by his minions, the Egg Boys, who had the same style of attire their boss obtained and observed their boss while he did his work. As our young overlord, the snake-based demon, Sirpentious opened his mouth and began to speak. "That uneducated missy, how dares she call me a failure?" Sirpentious growled in anger as he welded a hole in the engine. "Do I appear to be a failure, you walking omelettes in waiting?" he questioned from his minions, turning his head to the left in order to look at the Egg Boys, taking his goggles off of his face in the process. "No, boss man," an Egg Boy labeled as number 24 said, disagreeing with the question of his master. "You're not a failure," another Egg Boy called number 45 added, sharing his fellow Egg Boy's opinion. "You're the coolest demon we all know," the Egg Boy named number 67 remarked in admiration. "Precisely, you fried chicken fetuses. I'm the most powerful demon and the greatest mind in all of hell, and I shall show that little missy who's the real failure," the wannabe overlord declared, putting his yellow-glassed goggles back on and continuing the reparation of his airship's engine. "Sure you'll do, boss man," number 24 praised happily. "You always revenge the ones who doubt you," number 67 noted with admiration towards his master. Seeing that the conversation between Sirpentious and his minions had ended, Izuku thought that it was the perfect opportunity for him to make his presence known to the snake-based sinner. So, after he made this decision, he opened his mouth and began his speech. Sirpentious," Izuku started with a little bit of uncertainty as he entered the engine room with his shadowy friend, gaining the attention of the Egg Boys and Sirpentious, with the formers making him surrounded in a serious manner with weapons in their hands, making Izuku raise his hands into the air in a surrender and causing Shadow to shift into his defensive form in order to protect his master from any attack of the Egg Boys. "Ah, at last, the son of my greatest rival has finally arrived," Sirpentious announced as he turned around to face our dear hero and took his goggles off, placing them on the brim of his hat. "Have you come here to engage in a marvelous fight with the great Sirpentious? Because if that's what you desire, I'm happy to oblige," he stated in excitement as he laughed maniacally and opened his cobra hood while his minions readied their weapons, which were mostly just simple metal tools, such as wrenches and small pipes. "No, I'm not here for that," Izuku assured anxiously, looking at the wannabe overlord in the process. "I'm just here because Charlie asked me to tell you about the hellfire muffins my auntie makes, that's all," he explained nervously, ensuring Sirpentious with the fact that he didn't want trouble. To be honest, this explanation really caught both the snake-based sinner and his helpers off guard, making them just at our young Cambion for a short amount of time. Luckily for them, this silence was broken by one of the Egg Boys, who addressed his opinion on the situation in no time. "Muffins tilde," the Egg Boy with the number 48 on his back said as he thought about the muffins in the mixture of delight and hunger. Boss, can we eat from the muffins?" Number 33 wondered with a tiny bit of nervosity due to being anxious about his boss's answer. "How dare you ask SSSSS such a thing?" Sirpentious replied furiously, making the Egg Boys shake in fear. "The great Sirpentious doesn't for this nonsense," he declared in anger, sending number 33 flying with his right hand, causing him to hit the wall of the engine room so hard that it made the back of his egg body to crack, making a tiny amount of yellow-colored yolk leak out the crack as he came off the wall. "Now, leave the son of the radio demon by himself and go back to your work, you walking omelettes in waiting," the wannabe overlord demanded, putting his goggles back on and continuing to repair his airship's engine, not caring even slightly about the damage he did to his minion at all. But for Izuku, it was not the case. The moment he saw the Egg Boy come off the wall, he instantly turned his body and began to run towards him. "Oh my god, are you okay?" Our dear hero inquired in worry as he rushed to the injured number 33 with Shadow, who reverted back into his original form, while proceeding not to damage or push over the other egg boys. Once reaching the egg boy, he bent his legs, crouched down to his level, and looked the egg boy in the eye while the rest of the egg boys observed him and his shadowy friend during all of this. "Are you hurt?" Izuku wondered worriedly as he witnessed number 33. "Show me your back," he requested from the egg boy, who, after a little bit of hesitation, moved his egg body and turned around, showing off the crack on his back to our young Cambion. "Ah, that's not good." "Hold still, I can fix it," he assured, moved his head downwards and looked at his hands, thinking about the plan of using his voodoo magic to heal the egg boy. But he soon realized he didn't have a needle to create a hole in his finger, thus being incapable of making his finger bleed. So, he needed to use an alternative way to accomplish his plan. In a desperate attempt, he grabbed the skin of his right index finger with his teeth and ripped a tiny part of it off, causing it to bleed and shocking the egg boys and Shadow with his sudden act, with the latter freaking out a bit. Although it was really painful for Izuku, he had to endure for the sake of number 33. After causing his right index finger to leak out blood, Izuku moved his right hand and touched the egg boy's back with his bleeding finger, making him experience even greater pain. Then, our young overlord proceeded to draw the voodoo symbol on number 33's back, bearing with the pain in his finger in the process. Once he finished the symbol fully, Izuku lifted his finger from the egg boy's body, positioned his open palm above, and began his voodoo procedure. "Loco," our protagonist chanted, attempting to concentrate on his magic as much as he could. At the moment he said the word out loud, the symbol started to emit a bright, light green-colored light as the crack on the back of number 33 began to become smaller and smaller, and the little amount of yolk went back inside his body. A few more seconds and number 33's back was fully healed, with the symbol fading away once the healing was complete. Once the procedure was done, number 33 placed his hands on his back to check its current state, and he was shocked by the realization that it was healed, sharing his reaction with his fellow egg boys as well. He turned around and witnessed Izuku in awe, who presented him with a warm, kind, honest smile on his face. "You're welcome," Izuku said smilingly. "How did you do that?" Number 33 wondered in astonishment. "I just used my voodoo to heal you, nothing special," Izuku explained as he continued to smile at the egg boy. "Can you show it to us again?" the previously damaged egg boy queried, filled with excitement. "What?" our dear hero questioned in surprise, taken aback by this sudden request. "Yeah, show it to us," number 67 demanded with enthusiasm. "It was so cool," number 48 remarked excitedly. This unexpected admiration for his abilities from the egg boys made Izuku totally confused and surprised, making him even blush a little bit in embarrassment due to the egg boys' unforeseen attention towards him. "Well, I guess I can, but..." Izuku responded as he observed the egg boys while blushing a tiny bit from said embarrassment. Unfortunately for the egg boys, this adoration of theirs was interrupted by not other than Sirpentious, turning around and taking off his goggles yet again, facing his minions with even more anger. "What did I tell you, you fried chicken fetuses?" the wannabe overlord reminded frustratedly, causing the egg boys, Shadow, and Izuku to look at him, with the egg boys doing it while trembling in afraidness. "Go back to your work before I unleash my great anger on you," he ordered angrily, ready to let out his fury on his minions. "Yes, boss," the egg boys answered gloomily, going back to different parts of the room and continuing their work of helping their boss repair the ship. "Why are you so hard on them?" They just stopped for a moment because one of them got injured, Izuku questioned as he walked up to the snake-based demon. "Because a magnificent leader such as myself must have loyal minions. That was the first reason why I, the great Sirpentious, and my good old friend had decided to create them," Sirpentious stated as he looked at our protagonist, being almost finished with the welding of the hole he was sealing on the steam engine. "Wait, so, you and a friend of yours were the ones who created the egg boys?" Izuku wondered, opening his eyes a tiny bit wide in surprise. "Precisely, me and my good old partner in crime, Baxter," the wannabe overlord stated as he reminded himself of all the things he and his only friend, oh, how many delightful accomplishments we had together. "We were an unstoppable duo." I invited him to this rehabilitation center so that neither he nor I would not be alone, but he, unfortunately, declined my offer," he said slightly sadly, actually seeming to be a little bit down in the dumpster, making Izuku concerned about his well-being. But at the moment Sirpentious showed this side of his to our young overlord, he made his curved down smile vanish, coughed, and returned to his usual bombastic personality. "Anyway, we created them to be my loyal SSSS servant and to serve me as my soldiers in my magnificent quest of conquering this realm, but they turned out to be nothing but disappointment and frustration," the notable kingpin declared with anger due to incompetence of his helpers, focusing his attention back on our protagonist. "Now, enough of this nonsensical chit-chat. Go and leave me to be myself. You Cambion, I have an engine to fix," he said, placing his goggles on his face and going on with the reparation of his airship's engine. "Oh, may I help?" Izuku inquired nicely. "Do I appear to be a fool to you? I would never accept the help of the SSSSS son of my greatest rival," Sirpentious declared angrily, being enraged by the mere thought of accepting help from the son of the radio demon. "Okay?" Izuku responded a little bit gloomily due to him not being allowed to help, turning around and beginning to head towards the exit of the room with Shadow while Sirpentious and some of the egg boys witnessed him in this act. But at this moment, an idea appeared inside the snake demon's mind. An idea that was so devilish in his mind that it would result in the miserable defeat of the radio demon. And the only thing he needed to fulfill this was the help of no other person than his son. So, with the plan prepared in his head, he opened his mouth full of razor-sharp teeth and began to speak. "Wait," the wannabe overlord exclaimed, getting Izuku's and his egg boys' attention. "You can help me." "Really?" Izuku told in joy. "But with only one condition, you will become my pupil," Sirpentious stated with a malicious grin on his face. "What?" Izuku questioned dumbfoundedly, being completely caught off guard by this statement. "You heard me. You can help me repair my ship, but you have to be my pupil to do so. No additions, no alternatives. Give or take," the notable kingpin explained. "Oh, well, okay, I guess," our dear hero replied, accepting the snake demon's offer. "Excellent," Sirpentious declared with triumphant over his successful deal. "With this deal settled, I shall make the child of my greatest rival join my side, and with his help, I shall defeat his father once and for all and showed him who has the real power around here," he announced dramatically, performing it in an over-the-top performance style while the egg boys celebrated his success. As this small celebration was unfolding, Izuku and Shadow just observed the whole scene, with the former thinking about the arrangement he accepted from Sirpentious. And truth be told, Izuku didn't mind it at all. He always enjoyed helping others in activities they needed. That's why he wanted to help Sirpentious repair the airship in the first place. But when he saw how sad the wannabe overlord was when he mentioned his friend's absence, thus showing that he was actually pretty lonely in this place, our protagonist instantly knew he needed to act. So, when Sirpentious came up with the idea of him becoming his pupil in exchange for him allowed to help him repair his ship, he immediately accepted it. Although with a little bit of uncertainty due to the idea's absurdness, not because of wanting to help Sirpentious because he wanted to see his father's downfall, of course not. But because of this arrangement, Sirpentious wouldn't be alone all the time, thus helping him in a bigger, more helpful way. And due to this, he couldn't resist but smile as he witnessed the notable kingpin's victory, knowing that now he was at least delighted by this arrangement. But as this situation was unfolding, due to him being focused on observing Sirpentious, Izuku didn't notice the approach of a certain tiny female demon, who, after reaching our protagonist's location and getting positioned next to him, would let her presence without a second thought. "Looks like you two are getting along quite well," the sinner remarked smilingly, making Izuku and Shadow turn their heads to the right in surprise and move their heads downwards, allowing themselves to see the demon who was talking to our protagonist. And when they did, they saw someone they expected. The demon who was standing next to our dear hero was not other than his aunt, Niffty, who was wearing her usual maid attire and observing Izuku with a kind, caring smile on her face while holding a baking pan full of freshly baked hellfire muffins, 16 muffins to be exact. When Izuku saw that it was his aunt who was standing next to him, his smile immediately got wider, being really to see his aunt once again. "Auntie," Izuku said happily, smiling delightfully. "Hi, Izuku," Niffty greeted, then continued. "Sorry for surprising you all of a sudden, but I have great news. The muffins are done," she stated joyfully, showing off the muffins to her nephew. "Your father helped me bake them, that's why they were done more quickly. Since told me you were at Sirpentious's place at the moment, and because I didn't want the muffins to get cold, I decided to bring them up here so you could eat them when they're still warm," the cockroach explained, then lifted her hands upwards, moving the baking pan upwards as well, offering her nephew to taste one. "Here, try one." "Thank you, Auntie," Izuku remercied, extending his left arm and grabbing one of the muffins with his left hand, taking it off from the surface of the baking pan, with his aunt lowering her hands once he picked up the muffin from the baking pan. Then, Izuku moved the sweet delicacy to his mouth, opened his mouth, and took a bite from it, tasting it as he chewed it between his sharp, pointed teeth. And when he tasted it, it wasn't surprising for him that it was absolutely delicious, as it was expected from his aunt's muffins. "This is delicious," our young Cambion stated as gnawed the muffin part in his mouth, chewing it for enough time that it was small enough to be swallowed down, which he exactly did, sending the part of the muffin down into his stomach. "I'm happy to hear that," Niffty said, smiling at her nephew even more after hearing his positive opinion. "Do you want to try it too, Sirpentious?" she wondered as Izuku finished his own muffin. "Ha! The great Sirpentious doesn't have interest in sweet delicacies such as muffins," he announced, dismissing the female cockroach demon's offer. "Are you sure? They are fresh, right from the oven," Niffty declared smilingly, offering one of the muffins for Sirpentious by raising her hands and the baking pan into the air, thus moving it closer to the notable kingpin. "Fine, I'll take one, but not because you told me SSSSSO," the wannabe overlord clarified, slithering to the group once finishing his sentence. Then, he moved his right hand and grabbed one of the muffins with it, moving it to his mouth and taking a bite from it, thus tasting it. And even he was shocked to find out that its taste was marvelous, although he was eager not to show it. "It's tolerable," Sirpentious noted as he chewed and swallowed the muffin part he had in his mouth. "Thank you," Niffty remercied, focusing her attention back on her nephew, observing his appearance. But as she did this, she noticed something that utterly terrified her, causing her to put down the baking pan and rush to her beloved nephew. "Oh my God, Izuku! What happened to your finger?" she questioned in worry as she grabbed her nephew's hand and witnessed the blood that was leaking out of his right index finger. "An egg boy got hurt and I wanted to heal him, but I didn't have a needle to make my finger bleed. So, I needed to use an alternative way," Izuku explained as he scratched the back of his head in nervousness and awkwardness. "You silly, you could have used your claws to do that, at least," the cockroach female sinner stated angrily, then continued. "Don't move your hand. I can fix it," she said, placing both of her hands into her pockets and taking a rolled-up bandage and a small bottle of antiseptic out of them, dripping some droplets of the antiseptic on Izuku's wound and wrapping up Izuku's finger with the bandage, thus sealing the wound. Then, after she put the antiseptic back into her pocket, he grabbed a pair of scissors and with a cut, she separated the rolled-up bandage from its wrapped-up part, putting the bandage away in her right pocket. "And done," Niffty announced, then looked into our protagonist's eyes with a strict yet concerned. "Don't do anything like this ever again, okay?" "D'accord. Désolé, ma tante," Izuku apologized, feeling bad a little bit for making his aunt worried, causing his smile to vanish in the process. "You don't have to say sorry. Just be careful next time, okay?" she requested, concerned for her nephew's health. "Okay," Izuku responded with a little smile appearing on his face as he said this. "Good. Now, let's eat some muffins. I didn't bake them for nothing," Niffty noted, with both her and Izuku turning their heads to witness the state of the muffins on the baking pan. But when they did, they were shocked to find out that more than 3/4 of the muffins had vanished from sight. But you might think, who was the culprit who did this mischievous act? The answer is simple. It was Sirpentious, of course, who had 2 muffins in his hands and obtained so many muffins in his mouth that he looked like a squirrel that had its mouth full of chestnuts. "Hey, you could have left more for Izuku, you know," Niffty remarked angrily while Izuku just observed the notable kingpin with a smile, not being angry at him due to knowing that he did this because he really enjoyed eating the muffins. Hearing this remark, Sirpentious gulped down the muffins that were inside his mouth, then opened his mouth and began to speak. What? I'm just getting my edition of the arrangement I and your nephew did, nothing else, the wannabe overlord said, putting another muffin into his mouth after his statement. Arrangement? Niffty queried in complete confusion. Well, I made a deal with Sirpentious. If I become his pupil, I can help him repair his ship. Izuku simplified, gaining a strict look from his aunt. Izuku? Niffty started rigorously. Come on, auntie, I just wanted to help him. You know I enjoy helping others, Izuku pointed out as a few egg boys proceeded to approach the remaining 4 muffins with interest, wanting to taste them. But as they tried to take them, our young overlord and his aunt looked at them, causing them to stop in their act. At the moment Niffty realized what they attempted to do, she was about to say something to them that would prevent them from doing something like this ever again, when Izuku suddenly spoke up, interrupting her in her act. You can have them. I don't mind, Izuku told smilingly as he held up his right hand in an approving manner, getting a surprised expression from his aunt. Thank you, the egg boys answered in union, grabbing the muffins and breaking them into pieces which they shared with each other. Thank God I made 2 baking pans of muffins. If this goes like this, your helpfulness will be a burden for you, Izuku, Niffty noted, although not in a rude way, which of course, our dear hero knew. Anyway, I think it was enough rest for you, Izuku. Let's go back to your room so we can go on with your training, she advised, walking up to the empty baking pan and picking it up from the metal floor, then turning around and heading in the direction of the exit of the engine room. Okay, bye, egg boys, bye, Sirpentious, Izuku exclaimed as he and Shadow followed his aunt, saying goodbye to the notable kingpin and to his minions. Bye, Izuku, the egg boys said in union, saying goodbye to our protagonist as well while he stepped out of the room. Don't forget our arrangement, Sirpentious reminded, shouting after them. I won't, Izuku replied, closing the door behind him and leaving the wannabe overlord and his minion inside the engine room. After leaving the room, the group began to walk towards the exit of the airship, which was, of course, the entrance of the airship as well. Once reaching the door, Izuku rushed forward, grabbed the door handle, and pushed it downwards, unlocking the door and allowing his aunt to leave the airship first. Thank you, Izuku, she remercied as she stepped out of the airship's exit. You're welcome, Auntie, Izuku responded, locking the door behind his back after he and his shadowy friend left the ship. Oh, before I forget, your father said that today, you and him are going to train your teleportation, so I think you should prepare some bags for yourself, just in case, Niffty advised as she walked down on the ramp. Okay. Our protagonist replied a little bit nervously due to the fact that when he practiced with his teleport ability, it would result in him vomiting thanks to the sudden place changing he did in a short amount of time. And with this, Izuku's little meeting with Sirpentious had officially come to an end. After he reported back his father, his royal friend, and her girlfriend, Charlie was really happy when she heard that Sirpentious accepted their apology. But they were pretty surprised by the arrangement he did with the wannabe overlord, with Alastor not so sure if it was a good idea for his boy to make a deal with Sirpentious at first, but ultimately, he approved to this arrangement. The only one who was not happy about this deal was, of course, Vaggie. Now, her suspicion grew even greater, making her think even more that Izuku was indeed plotting against Charlie's dream and wanted to see her fail, just like his father. And if this was real, and she would find out about it, she would make Izuku pay so much that he would wish he never came to the hotel. 3 months had flown by since Izuku had that arrangement with Sirpentious. During these months, he became friends with all the egg boys, who acted around like they were his fans, which was due to how he helped out number 33 and assisted the wannabe overlord in the reparation of his ship, who, in return, became our young overlord's second mentor and taught him about how to handle machinery, which, truth be told, mostly consisted of him bragging about some inventions of his and how of a great to our dear hero and test them with the help of our protagonist. But with all honesty, Izuku didn't mind this at all. Moreover, he enjoyed observing the notable kingpin acting in a manner such as this due to him finding out that there was something else that made Sirpentious happy, aside from causing destruction and mayhem in Pentagram City, tutoring. To Izuku's surprise, Sirpentious was quite good at teaching, and he showed him every part of the machines he had and how they operated with actual care and compassion, making Izuku enjoy his lessons and respect the wannabe overlord even more. Besides being a pupil of the notable kingpin, Izuku, as usual, also spent most of his free time in the hotel continuing to help his royal friend in achieving her dream as much as he could, even coming up with the idea of advertising the hotel by doing a radio show about it with the help of his father, which he agreed to almost without a second thought when he mentioned the idea to him. All of this help he provided made Charlie really happy, causing her to appreciate him and grow fond of him even more, with Vaggie not obtaining a good opinion about their friendship. But aside from all of this, the most important thing for him at this period of his life was still not other than being completely prepared for his entrance exam at UA, thus focusing his attention on his training, which was even more important due to the fact that the entrance exam was 1 month away. So, in order to become 100% trained for the exam, his father, aunt, and uncle decided to make his training even more intense, which Izuku was not against at all, knowing that his demonic family members did all of this for him to accomplish his dream. And for this, with all of his strength, he began to train with an even bigger amount of determination than ever in order not to make the help they provided turn into nothing, just like on that certain Sunday afternoon. On that afternoon, 2 hours after lunchtime, our dear hero was in the beautiful green grass, red apple tree decorated backyard of the hotel and was at the end of one of this type of training, practicing with more tentacles than he could handle to control. But this had a reason. By doing this regularly, in the future, he could manage and control his tentacles more easily and with more skill, maybe even becoming able to control more than 2 of them simultaneously. Just like on every day he came into hell, he wore his usual attire that was similar in style to his father's, aside from the colors being green of course, while being accompanied by his shadowy friend and by his father, who observed him in his training and helped him when he needed to. As Izuku attempted to concentrate on controlling the 4 tentacles he summoned, just as his father instructed him to do so, managing the control of 2 tentacles per hand, he moved both of his hands, causing the tentacles to approach the empty metal trash can, which his father placed in front of them at the beginning of that day's training, although him controlling them with a little bit of struggle. When the tentacles reached the trash can, with growing difficulty, Izuku guided them to touch and wrap themselves around the trash can, lifting it up from the ground and into the air. But when Izuku was about to clench his hands into fists, thus making the tentacles crush the trash can, despite using all the strength he acquired, he suddenly lost control over his tentacles, causing them to drop the trash can instantly and slither back into their fiery portals, with the portals closing once the tentacles retreated fully. When he saw his son's attempt fail, the radio demon moved his legs and walked up to our protagonist, opening his mouth full of yellow-colored sharp teeth and beginning his speech in the process. "No, my boy, don't do it like that. Don't control your tentacles only with sheer force," Alastor advised as he got next to his one and only child. "You must clear your mind first if you desire to handle them properly," he said, then turned his head to the left and with a flick of his right hand, he summoned 4 tentacles as well, all of them coming out from their own fiery portals. Imagine them as they are the fingers on your hands, he proposed as he extended his right hand and took control over his tentacles, moving them by moving his own right hand, with the tentacles getting next to each other and forming a kind of hand. Clear your mind and then picture it like you are picking it up with your hand, the radio demon advised as he moved his right hand a little bit downwards and positioned his right thumb and right index finger closer to each other, with the tentacles mimicking the movements of his right hand and grabbing the metal trash can up, which was done by the tentacles that served as the thumb and the index finger of the makeshift hand, and when the time is perfect. He continued, moving his hand back to its original position, with the tentacles doing the same, raising the trash can into the air. "Unleash all your wrath and crush it with all your might," Alastor announced in evil amusement as he imagined crushing the body of a demon, probably his rival, forming his right hand into a fist and making the hand made out of his tentacles crush the metal trash can with a loud, crackling sound. After that, Alastor let go of his tentacles, making them break their formation and move back into their separate portals, which instantly closed at the moment they entered them completely, thus causing the crushed trash can to fall on the ground. Then, the radio demon snapped with his fingers and summoned a new metal trash can in the place of the new one, turning his head in the direction of his son and observing him once he completed this act. "Got it, my boy?" Alastor wondered. "Yes, Dad, I got it," Izuku replied smilingly, although not sharing his father's sinful imagination about the purpose he would use his powers, moving his head and looking at the new trash can. Right after that, with a flick of his right hand, he opened 4 new fiery portals, each one allowing a black-colored tentacle to enter the outside world. Once the tentacles appeared in front of the group, our young Cambion turned his hands in the direction of the tentacles, taking control of them once the green aura around his hands and tentacles disappeared fully. Then, Izuku proceeded to move his hands, getting the tentacles to the trash can closer and closer with each move. "Yes, that's it, my boy, just like that," Alastor told to his son, ensuring him that he was doing his act perfectly. "Don't let your mind become occupied with stressful thoughts. Calm yourself down and focus," he advised as Izuku moved his fingers just as his father told him to do, causing the tentacles to wrap around the metal trash can slowly, but surely, and release it. The radio demon started, with his son making the tentacles rise into the air, holding the trash can in the process. "Now," Alastor suggested, asking his to use his power, which was the exact thing he did, clenching his right hand into a fist and thus making the tentacles crush the metal trash can, with the trash can letting out the same loud, crackling sound as the previous one. "Excellent job, my boy," Alastor praised proudly as Izuku smiled at his successful attempt to crush the trash can. "I couldn't have done better myself." "Thank you, Dad," Izuku remercied joyfully, witnessing his father as he said this. "You're welcome, my boy," the radio demon responded with his well-known smile on his face while he observed his son. "Now, I suppose it was enough training for you for today. Let us take a break and take a look at the others before your today's practice with your uncle begins, shall we?" he suggested with a toothy grin. "Okay, Dad," Izuku answered, agreeing to his father's suggestion. With this, he, his shadowy friend, and his father turned their bodies in the direction of the pair of doors that served both as the entrance and the exit of the hotel's garden and started to approach it with causal steps. Once approaching it, Alastor passed by our young overlord and his shadowy companion, grabbed the handle of one of the doors, and pushed it down, making it unlock and offering his son and his shadow to access the building of the hotel first. After accepting and thanking for this generous gesture, our protagonist and his shadow entered the hotel, followed by his demonic father who closed the door behind his back after he stepped inside the building completely. Once all members of the trio were inside the hotel, they continued their journey towards the lobby, going through the same dark red-walled hallway they went through every time our protagonist and his father had their usual training routine with each other. After a couple of minutes, both Izuku's and Alastor's auditory organs suddenly picked up the sound of talking, which, fortunately for Izuku and unfortunately for the radio demon, didn't sound like arguing, indicating 2 things. 1. No conflict was unfolding in the area of the lobby, and 2. They were near to their destination. 2 minutes passed, and the group finally reached the lobby, allowing our dear hero, his shadowy friend, and his father to get a glimpse of the situation that was happening there. And when they did, Izuku's eyes shot wide in surprise at what he laid his eyes upon. In the lobby area of the hotel, every member of the main cast was foundable, sitting in front of the poker table of the caviar bar, which had poker chips and some money placed on it, probably playing poker or other same kind of card game. It was even more surprising for Izuku that not only Sirpentious was in front of the table, who usually shut himself away from the others and stayed inside his airship, with Izuku being the only one in the hotel whom he communicated with the most. But the 2 pets of the Happy Hotel were there as well, with Kiki floating in the air and observing the play of the residents of the hotel, and with Fat Nuggest sitting in the lap of his owner and witnessing how he played and what type of cards he had. At the edge of the left side of the poker table, Izuku's aunt, Niffty, was positioned, sitting on a simple bar chair and observing as the others played their card game. At her left side, our dear hero's uncle was located, looking at the 2 cards he obtained with a smile on his face, which was clearly not a usual sight to witness. With Izuku knowing that he had this expression due to the fact card games and gambling were one of the few things his uncle enjoyed, while the seat at Husk's left side was occupied by not other than Sirpentious, who was also holding cards in his hands, 2 to be exact, while the rest of his cards made up his flop. Meanwhile, at the right side of the table, the Princess of Hell was sitting on the bar chair that was next to her girlfriend, more specifically, on the one that was at her girlfriend's right side, who had 2 cards in her hands and 5 cards in her flop, with the chair at Vaggie's left side being unoccupied, offering a seat between the moth-based female sinner and the notable kingpin. Finally, at the edge of the right side of the table, Hell's most famous gay porn star was having a seat, with him holding and witnessing 7 cards in his upper hands and his pet pig observing them while acquiring an empty seat at his left side, thus allowing anyone to sit down between himself and Princess Charlotte. After processing this visual information and shaking off the surprise he obtained, our protagonist, accompanied by his shadowy friend and his father, moved his legs and approached the group, opening his mouth and speaking up while accomplishing this act. "Hi, everyone," Izuku exclaimed smilingly as he walked towards the group with his shadowy companion and his father, gaining the attention of every demon at the poker table. "Hi, Izuku," Charlie greeted happily, smiling sweetly at her young overlord friend as ever. "Sup, toots," Angel told to our dear hero, saying hi to Izuku as well. "Hey, kid," Husk said while not looking at his nephew, observing his cards with a smile instead. "Hey," Vaggie responded coldly, witnessing our dear hero with a cold gaze that was enough to make Izuku shake in fear and make him flatten his ears and tail a tiny bit. "Ah, my fellow pupil, how delighted it is for me to see you," Sirpentious replied as he observed his student with a smile, with his hat sharing its owner's expression. "I proudly announce that I, the great Sirpentious, have repaired and upgraded my ray gun. ISSS suggest that we must test it out immediately, right after I finish this little card game," he announced dramatically in a top-of-the-performance style, making Izuku calm down, straighten his ears and tail, and look at him with a smile on his face due to seeing the wannabe overlord in this delightful state. "Oi, bitch, shut the fuck up and focus on as I kick your ass, ya dumbass," Husk demanded from the snake-based as he continued to look at his cards, causing the notable kingpin and our protagonist to set their eyes upon him. "Huh, fine, I'll do as you wish, but because you told me to do SSSSSO, feline," Sirpentious announced, turning his head and focusing his attention on the pack of cards in his hands again. "What's going on?" Izuku wondered with both interest and a tiny bit of confusion. Well, Angel wanted to challenge Vaggie to a poker game, and when Husk heard this, he wanted to join their game as well. The Princess of Hell explained as she observed her young Cambion friend with a smile. "And what about Sirpentious? Did he join by himself or?" Izuku questioned. "Actually, yeah, he came down from his ship to search for you to talk with you about his ray gun, but when he saw that you weren't here, he came to us and asked us if he could join," Charlie added, making Izuku widen his eyes in surprise by hearing this. But this surprise was quickly replaced by a smile of happiness and relief, knowing that his teacher had become a little bit more social, with the snake-like sinner just rolling his eyes at Princess Charlotte's remark. "May I join too?" Izuku inquired politely. "Of course, take a seat," Charlie responded nicely, letting her friend take part in the game. After this, Izuku moved his head and observed the 2 seats he could choose from. One between Sirpentious and Vaggie, which was on his left side and was closer to him at that moment, and one on his right side, which was between his royal friend and Angeldust. For him, the logical choice would have been to sit down on the chair that was closer to him, thus taking a seat between his snake-based demon teacher and the girlfriend of the Princess of Hell. But there was one itty-bitty problem with this choice that prevented our young Cambion from doing this in the first place. It was Vaggie's presence. For Izuku, Vaggie's gaze or mere presence was enough to unsettle him and make him shiver in utter fear. But all of Izuku's reaction towards her was not due to how she treated our protagonist since he had come to the hotel 9 months ago. Because, despite her actions towards him, Izuku didn't hate Vaggie one bit. In fact, he respected her since he met her due to how loyal and helpful she was towards her girlfriend and how she always tried to help her girlfriend accomplish her reason for his fear towards her was thanks to how similar appearance was to those things. The things that caused Izuku to become traumatized and made him experience nightmares. All of this starting when he saw and met them almost 10 years ago on the day of that incident. Due to all of this, Izuku decided to turn his body to the right and with Shadow by his side. He walked up to the seat that was positioned between Princess Charlotte and Angeldust, sitting down on it once reached it, while Charlie, Vaggie, and Angel's little curious pet pig observing him as he did this act. With Vaggie doing it with the same cold gaze and Fat Nuggets' owner not being able to look at him due to being too focused on the game. Do you want to join us, Al? The Princess of Hell queried from the radio demon as joyfully as ever. Oh, my dear Charlie, I apologize if it saddens you, but I'm not a fan of these card games. I would rather be an observer. Alastor answered as he witnessed Charlie with his iconic, never-disappearing smile on his face. Really? Then at least sit with us, Princess Charlotte offered nicely. As you wish, darling, Alastor responded, taking Princess Charlotte's offer and approaching the chair casually, descending on it after he got to it and observing the moth-like female demon with a smug, which was rewarded with a frustrated and hateful expression by Vaggie. Ah, F it, I give up, Angel said in frustration, tossing his cards on the table, thus revealing that he had a pair of 2 of hearts in his hands, while the rest of his cards in his flop were 2 jacks, a 3 of hearts, a 3 of spades, and a 3 of clubs, making him obtain a hand called 2 pair and causing everyone to look at him by his sudden speak up. Ha, how shameful. It appears that you're weaker than I imagined. Observe me as I, the great Sirpentious, defeat all of you and crush you into the ground. Sirpentious announced dramatically with a malicious grin, with his hat sharing the same expression, as he put the cards he acquired on the table, showing off the 1 3 of spades and a 6 of clubs he had in his hands, thus allowing him to have a hand referred to as 3 of a kind, which consisted of 3 queens, a 9 of hearts, and a 2 of spades, in his flop. Ha! What do you do with that, you miserable creatures? He declared with evil joy, making Vaggie set her eyes upon him with frustration and causing Izuku to roll his eyes at him, although doing it in a not rude manner. Well, I have a high card, Vaggie noted, placing her 2 cards, which were a 4 of spades and an 8 of diamonds, on the poker table, thus revealing that due to her flop, she indeed obtained a high card hand that was made out of a king, a queen, a 7 of spades, a 5 of spades, and a 3 of hearts. Ha, is that all you got? How pitiful, the wannabe overlord questioned, ticking off Vaggie even more. Unfortunately for him, the notable Kingpin's victory was quickly cut short by not other than our protagonist's uncle. Ha, weep over it, bitches, full house, Husk declared with actual joy in his voice as he set his cards on the table, showing off his full house that consisted of his flops cards, which were 2 kings, a 6 of spades, a 6 of hearts, and a 6 of diamonds, and the 2 cards he obtained in his hands, which were a 7 of clubs and a 9 of spades, shocking Sirpentious and surprising the demons that were playing with his reveal. Impossible. The great Sirpentious must not be defeated like this. You must have cheated, Sirpentious assumed, accusing the anthropomorphic cat of cheating who pulled the poker chips and the money from the middle of the table to himself while the wannabe overlord said this. Suck it up, idiot, the cat-based sinner noted as looked at the wannabe overlord with a smug on his face. So, who's in for another round? Not me, I'm out, Angel replied, not wanting to go on with the game. Me too, Vaggie responded, rejecting Husk's offer. Ha, I would rather die than play with a cheater, Sirpentious declared madly, still angry at Husk for his cheating. Looks like it's just you and me, kid. Let's get this shit started, Husk announced, pushing the poker chips and the money he had just won away to the left, taking all the cards from the others and putting them into a deck, shuffling them once gathering all of them. Bring it on, uncle, Izuku told to his demonic uncle as he observed him with a smug, surprising everyone at the table with his sudden out-of-character behavior, with the exception being his father and aunt, who exactly knew what was going on. After that, Husk placed the deck of cards down in the middle of the poker table, letting his nephew draw his 5 cards first, with 3 serving as his flop, which consisted of a 4 of diamonds, a 6 of diamonds, and a 7 of hearts, and 2 getting the roll of his beginner cards, that were a 5 of clubs and a 10 of spades to be exact, which what Izuku exactly did, and was grateful for his uncle's kind act. Once the anthropomorphic feline demon drew his own 5 cards, 3 acting as his flop, which was made out of a 9 of diamonds, an 8 of hearts, and a 3 of spades, and 2 as his beginner cards, which were a 6 of spades and a 5 of diamonds. Just like in his nephew's case, he moved the half of the poker chips to our young Cambion, thus allowing him to start his bets while none of their smugs vanished from their faces. I'm gonna make a bet. What are you gonna do, kid? Husk inquired smugly, putting a few red poker chips at his flop's right side. I think I'm going to make a call, Izuku responded with the same smug tone and expression his uncle obtained, positioning an exact amount of red poker chips at his own flops right side his uncle placed. "Good choice, kid. Really good choice," Husk remarked with a confident smile, praising his nephew for his choice of action, while everyone at the table witnessed them in total silence and was totally confused by our protagonists and the cat-based sinner's behavior, aside from Alastor and Niffty of course. This confusion grew even greater when they began to feel like there were two giant, powerful auras around both of them, ready to clash with each other at any time. Fortunately for them, this silence of theirs was disrupted by not other than the Princess of Hell, who broke the silence with a simple yet reasonable question. What's going on here?" Charlie questioned in confusion, with everyone else asking the same question inside their minds. Luckily for her, her question was quickly answered by the radio demon. "Allow me to explain, my dear," Alastor requested, then continued. "You see, my dear boy has been taught how to play this little card game by my dear Husker, and since then, they played together so many times that it became a competition of sorts between them. It's quite a sight to witness," he explained while the one-eyed cockroach female sinner was nodding with her head in approval, signaling that what Alastor said was 100% true. Charlie widened her eyes in surprise when this was revealed to her. Her young friend, Izuku, who was a really nice, kind, and innocent teenager and always tried to help everyone in the hotel, liked poker. Not only that, it turned out that he had been playing this gambling game for a long, probably with his uncle most of the time, making her start to think that she didn't know everything about her young overlord friend, with her not having a single bad thought about him due to trusting him as his friend. And while she thought about this, she realized something. Despite him talking about his demonic father, aunt, and uncle, Izuku never told her how he exactly met Alastor, Niffty, and Husk in the first place. So, shortly after this realization, she decided that after her young friend finished this game of his with his uncle, it would be the first thing that she would ask him about this. As she was too focused on this question of hers in her head, our dear hero and his uncle went on with their game, with the latter opening his mouth and starting a conversation. "So, you want to do a rematch with your old man, huh? Tell me, what's your bet this time?" Husk queried as he burned the card, which meant taking it out of the deck and putting it aside at the top of the deck, and drawing a card from the deck for himself. "Well, I was thinking that if I win, you're going to make a trick, but if I lose," our protagonist proposed smugly, about to end his sentence, but couldn't due to his uncle completing it first. "I'm gonna make your training today so fucking hard that you're gonna sweat fucking blood. Deal?" the radio demon's male servant announced, finishing his nephew's sentence before he could. "Deal," Izuku answered, accepting his uncle's offer. "Hey," Sirpentious exclaimed, "you made us bet with money, but you let my pupil play without money. That's not fair at all," he declared in anger, with Husk not giving a shit about his cry over due to him being so nice to his nephew that he was the only one in his life, both mortal and afterlife, who he would never allow to play with money against him. And thus, the second round of the game between nephew and uncle came to an end, with them beginning the third round once the sound round ended. They continued their game the way they did in the case of the previous rounds, drawing and exchanging cards and taking bets, calls, checks, and raises in the process, while everyone at the table, both demons and pets, witnessed them in their play. Finally, at the final round of the game, both of them obtained 7 cards, with 5 on the table and 2 in their hands, causing each of them to acquire a hand that was enough to end their game, with Izuku being the one who revealed his cards first. "Full house," our protagonist revealed, placing his 2 cards on the table and showing off his full house hand that consisted of a 3 of spades, a 3 of clubs, a 3 of diamonds, and 2 kings. "What do you have, uncle?" he wondered with curiosity. "Well, prepare yourself, kid, because today, I'm gonna kick your ass really hard," Husk declared, tossing his own 2 cards on the table, which allowed Izuku to see all the cards his uncle had at that moment, revealing that, aside from an ace of clubs, an ace of diamonds, an ace of hearts, an ace of spades, and a 3 of hearts that served as his flop, he also had a 5 of diamonds and a joker, thus making him acquire a kind of hand labeled as a 5 of kind and surprising Izuku with this 5 of a kind. "Ah, dang it," Izuku said, being a tiny bit upset about his defeat, but not losing from his joyfulness even one bit. "You cheated, didn't you, uncle?" he asked with a confident smile. "I thought you would never notice it." Husk responded with a smug, then performed a quick flick with his right hand, causing a poker card to appear in his hand and thus showing off the original 6 of spades card he drew at the start of the sound round of the game. "Ha! I knew it!" Sirpentious exclaimed, feeling victorious for being right about the anthropomorphic cat demon's deceit. "Looks like I need to wait until you do a magic trick." Our young Cambion sighed, not being at his uncle for his cheating at all. "Wait, magic trick?" Angel wondered with confusion in his voice. "Yeah, my uncle was a magician when he was alive. He knows all kinds of magic trick," Izuku explained, surprising Angel with this fact. "The focus is on the was kid," Husk noted, going back to his usual grumpy self. "Oh, can you make some magic tricks now for me?" Angel inquired from the grumpy cat sinner with excitement. "No, the kid lost the game, so I won't do a magic trick. Now, fuck off, legs," Husk replied furiously, snapping at the gay porn star. Alright, I'm not gonna ask it again. Sheesh, don't need to shout at me because I'm curious about your magic bullshit," Angel remarked huffily, putting his upper right elbow on the table and resting his head on his upper right palm, looking away from all members of the group grumpily. At the moment he did this act, the alcohol-loving cat-like demon couldn't bear seeing, maybe due to annoyance or guilt, and decided due to something he himself didn't believe he would do, sighing and unlocking his mouth once he made his decision. "Well, I guess I could do a couple, but it would be nothing fancy," Husk explained as he scratched his right cheek with his right index finger with a little bit of blush on his face. "Really?" the spider-based sinner questioned as he moved his body forward, causing him to bring his face so close to Husk that it was just a few inches away from it while he held his pet pig in his lower hands, with the latter obtaining a huge blush on his face due to Angel's sudden move. "You're so sweet, Huskapoo," Angel teased in a flirty tone. "Ugh, shut the hell up, it's nothin'," Husk answered, pushing Angel's face away from himself with his right hand gently, making him sit back on his seat. "But I'm not doing this again," he clarified as his blush disappeared, probably already regretting his choice of act. "Ugh, I get it. Ya bitter and hate fun," Angel said, becoming full of Husk's behavior. "Now, do some cool stuff already," he requested, placing his head on his left upper hand, with him and everyone else observing Husk and waiting for him to begin his trick, which he started almost instantly once he sighed and mentally prepared himself. "Do you see anything in hand?" the feline-like demon queried the gay adult movie star while holding up both of his hands, waiting for a simple answer from him. But the only he got from Angel was just a snort, signaling that he was at the edge of laughing, making the anthropomorphic blush a tiny bit from embarrassment. "Just answer the question, ya damn brat," he ordered as his face became more red from the blush he acquired. "No, I don't see," Angel responded as he tried not to laugh. After his reply, Husk made a quick move with his, resulting in a poker card appearing in his hands, surprising Angel and almost everyone else at the table, with Alastor, Vaggie, and Izuku being the only ones who didn't become surprised by his trick, with our protagonist witnessing his uncle's magical performance with delight. "Holy shit," Angel noted in amazement as he watched the love of his life's magic trick. "Don't drop your effing jaws yet, there's more to come," Husk announced with joy and a smug smile on his face, putting the poker card down on the table once he finished his sentence. Then, he grabbed his top hat with his left hand and took it off of his head, holding it in front of his body. After that, he made a few circles above his hat with his right hand, reached into it, and pulled Kiki out of it, taking aback everyone aside from the radio demon, the moth-based female sinner, and our dear hero even more. "Wow," Angel said in astonishment. "See? I told you he's a magician," Izuku remarked happily and smilingly, proving his point for Angel. Unfortunately for him, his happy time was cut short when out of nowhere, he experienced a sudden pain in his tail, causing him to stand up from his chair and the table. "Oh," he exclaimed in pain as he rose from his seat, getting everyone's attention. When he stood up, to check why his tail was hurting, he grabbed the lower part of his green coat that covered his tail and lifted it in order to check why his tail was hurting. And when he did, he was shocked to find out that it was Fat Nuggets who somehow approached his tail without him noticing, positioned it inside his mouth, and began to munch on it cutely, thus making him feel pain. This whole situation caused both Angel, Husk, and Sirpentious to release a laughter, with the latter letting Kiki free from his grip, while Alastor felt anger towards him due to him not paying any attention to his pet, thus allowing Fat Nuggets to bite his son's tail and make it hurt. And while all of this happened, Charlie just observed the whole scene, not forgetting the question that lingered in her mind and waiting for the perfect moment to ask her question from her young friend. Once both the spider-like demon and Izuku's gambling-loving uncle finished their laugh, and Angel took Fat Nuggets off of Izuku's tail, and this whole scene came to an end. Everyone rose from the poker table and went on their own separate ways, with Husk going back behind his bar counter, followed by Angel and Sirpentious, who both ordered a drink for themselves, and Izuku walking to the lounge section of the lobby with his shadowy friend and starting a conversation with his father and aunt there, leaving Charlie and Vaggie to themselves. Shortly after this, Vaggie informed her girlfriend that she needed to go outside to grab some food for themselves, and right after the Princess of Hell approved, she immediately went to the entrance of the hotel and exited it, thus leaving Princess Charlotte to herself. Then, Charlie just continued to observe her young Cambion having a talk with two of his demonic relatives, with Izuku sitting on one of the sofas, shadow floating above him, Alastor standing next to him on his right side, and Niffty standing on the sofa at her nephew's left side, trying to gather as much encouragement to ask what she was curious about as she could. Finally, after like 3 minutes, she decided to approach him, ready to ask her question. Izuku, she started, gaining the attention of all the members of the group. "Oh, hey Charlie," our protagonist said, saying hi to his friend. "I thought you were with Miss Vaggie." "Well, I was, but she told me she needed to go out to grab some food," the Princess of Hell explained. "Oh, I see," Izuku answered as friendly as usual, looking at his royal friend with a smile on his face. "Anyway, sorry to interrupt your conversation, but may I ask you a question from you?" Charlie wondered. "It appears to me that you're now having company, and I don't want to be a nuisance for you." Alastor noted with his signature grin on his face, turning around as he said this. "Enjoy your practicing with your uncle, my boy," he stated, moving his legs and beginning to walk away from the group. "Thank you, Dad," our dear hero remercied, turning his head and witnessing his friend once again. "Sure, go ahead." "Well, I was thinking that you always talk about your dad, but you never told me how you met him. Can you tell me about it?" the Princess of Hell queried, making the radio demon stop in his tracks by asking this question, with him knowing her next question due to the type of the query. "Of course," Izuku replied nicely, then started telling the story of how he met his father, his aunt, and Miss Rosie, how kind his father was to him, how he met his first demonic friend, Mello, and how his father saved from the creep who tried to rape him. And as he told this to his royal friend, Charlie stood and listened in shock by hearing all of this. She knew that Alastor had a thing to protect the weak and the ones who couldn't defend themselves, and she knew that a father should always love and be nice to his child, but it was still shocking for her to hear Alastor behaving like this. But as she listened to her friend telling his story, she noticed that he left out a family member of his from the tale, causing her to think that he met Husk at another time and making her create her second question in her mind. "And that's it. That's how I met my dad," Izuku finished, ending his story smilingly. "I see," Princess Charlotte noted, processing the bunch of information she had just received and opening her mouth yet again to ask her question once she processed it completely. "But you didn't talk about how you met your uncle? Could you tell me about that too?" she requested as kindly as ever, hoping for that her friend would tell this story with the same joyful tone and expression. But instead of that happy face she expected, she was rewarded with a type of expression she didn't think of. When she asked her question, the smile Izuku acquired instantly vanished, being replaced with an expression that showed discomfort and uneasiness, with Alastor lowering his smile a little bit and him, Niffty, and Husk feeling worried about their nephew's mental state. Recognizing this, Charlie immediately regretted asking this question of hers in the first place. "Oh, I didn't know it was a sensitive topic. I'm so sorry, Izuku," Charlie apologized, feeling bad for unsettling her young overlord friend. "No, it's fine," our young Cambion responded, assuring his royal friend that she didn't do anything bad by asking this and letting out a sigh to prepare himself mentally. "I will tell you." "No, you don't have to," Charlie replied, not wanting to make her friend even more sad. "No, I will tell you. It's easier for everyone," Izuku remarked in a tiny bit gloomy tone, with his aunt placing her right hand on his left shoulder in a comforting manner, causing Izuku to look at her and adopt a small smile, appreciating her gesture. "Yeah, tell us," Angel exclaimed as he walked up to the group while he was holding a glass of alcoholic beverage in his upper right hand and fat nuggets in his lower hand, earning the attention of the group. "Ya don't need to hide you peed yourself when you were little. All of us did at that time," he joked as he descended on the other sofa, sitting down on the middle of it while his pet pig observed our protagonist non-stop. "Angel," Charlie exclaimed angrily. "It's fine, Charlie, don't worry," Izuku ensured, then tapping on the sofa with his right hand, signaling her to sit down next to him. "Come on, take a seat," he requested as his father rotated his body and joined back to their group, stopping and standing at the right side of the sofa, while the demonic pet cat, Kiki, also became a member of the group, with her placing herself on the table in front the three furniture, and looking at our young overlord with curiosity. Hearing his request, Princess Charlotte walked up to the sofa, turned around, and sat down on it, positioning herself next to her young friend and witnessing him with a worried expression. After his royal friend placed herself on the furniture comfortably, our dear hero moved his head in the direction of the notable kingpin, observing him in the process. "Do you want to join us, Sirpentious?" he queried with the same gloomy tone, making the wannabe overlord look at his pupil. "Fine, I'll join you," Sirpentious answered, getting out of his bar chair and slithering to the group, thus leaving our protagonist's uncle alone in the caviar bar. "But right after you told this little tale of yours, we are going to test my ray gun," he declared, reaching the group's location and descending down on the armchair. "As you wish, Sirpentious," Izuku responded with a small smile on his face, which disappeared right after he replied to his demonic teacher's announcement. Then, he clasped his hands together and moved his head downwards, witnessing the dark red-colored floor while doing this. "Now, where should I begin? It was a cold, winter day, 10 years ago." Izuku started, beginning the story of how he met his uncle. It was a cold winter Saturday morning in the country of Japan. The streets of the city of Musutafu were covered in snow as it continued to fall from the sky as tiny but beautiful snowflakes, with the roads and sidewalks being the only things that did not obtain this frosty substance due to the people cleaning the roads and sidewalks to allow the citizens to get to their workplaces. The buildings and lights all across the city were decorated with winter and Christmas-themed decorations, and for a good reason, because, although the majority of the population didn't celebrate it, it was still the first day of Christmas. Many children in the country woke up from their sleep and jumped out of their beds, running to the Christmas trees of their families and checking what kind of presents they got from Santa Claus. But in the case of the 4-year-old Izuku, it was slightly different. Of course, he was excited about his present, but that was not the main reason for his excitement. It was that it was the day when our protagonist would meet his father once again. Recognizing this fact, with a bright, innocent smile on his face, our dear hero got out of his bed at the moment he exited the realm of dreams and awoke himself, running out of his room and rushing in the direction of the kitchen/living room, with a smaller, much more younger shadow following his master while he was doing all of this. Once reaching the kitchen/living room of their living place, he and his shadowy companion could witness his already awake mother preparing his favorite meal, katsudon, as their breakfast, with her greeting her son and asking him to take a seat at the table once she noticed his presence. Once he sat down at the table and his mother put his dish on the table, Izuku instantly grabbed his chopstick and dug into his breakfast, not wasting even a single second. After he finished his meal, Izuku got down from his seat, and with Shadow by his side, he ran to their Christmas tree and checked if there was a present under it or not, hoping for something that was his favorite hero, All Might, themed. When he got to it, he saw one present under the tree, making him immediately touch it with his hands and causing him to start opening it, while his mother observed him unboxing his present excitedly with a sweet smile on her face. After a few moments, he unlocked the present completely, allowing himself to take a look at its inside content. And when he did, he saw a special edition All Might figure, becoming even happier and getting it out of the present box once he saw it. Then, he rushed in front of his mother with his shadowy friend while holding his newly got figurine, asking his mother to let him visit his father in order to show him his new toy. Although with a little bit of worry, Inko gave her approval to her son's idea, requesting him to handle himself first as usual, asking him to do an act such as brushing his teeth and face while she prepared his clothes for him. Hearing his mother's permission, our young protagonist instantly ran towards the bathroom of their apartment, while his shadowy companion tried to keep up with him as his mother witnessed him leave the room with a kind and motherly smile. Then, after her precious son went inside the bathroom with Shadow, Inko moved her legs and walked in the direction of her son's room, entering it and approaching the wardrobe once she was inside. Then, she opened the doors of the wardrobe and took a look inside, searching for the clothes her son wore when he met his father for the first time. Eventually, he found the attire she was looking for, grabbing it with her right hand and getting it out of the wardrobe. After that, she closed the doors of the wardrobe and stepped out of the room of her only living blood relative, going back to the kitchen living room of their living location, placing her son's clothes on the sofa, and waiting for him to clean himself fully. A few minutes passed, and our young protagonist opened the door of the bathroom and stepped out of it with Shadow, now acquired with freshly cleaned teeth and face, still obtaining his sweet smile. Then, he entered the living room kitchen, ran to his mother, and climbed up on the sofa, beginning to take off his pajamas with the help of his mother and shadowy companion. Of course, when he got to his pajama trousers, he asked his mother and shadowy companion to cover their eyes, requesting them to keep their eyes closed until he took off his trousers and put his underwear on. Once he got his underwear on himself, he let his mother and shadowy friend unlock their eyes, with them continuing to help him dress up. When he put his boots on, thus completing his attire, his mother turned and extended her hand towards the red-colored, old-fashioned vintage radio on the table, adjusting it to the right channel in order to make it possible for her son to visit his father. Once she tuned the radio in, she stepped away from it and asked her son to push the button in the middle as he got off of the sofa and approached the radio while his shadowy friend turned into his shadow form, with our young protagonist pushing the button down with his right index finger after he got to it. Then, the same red and orange-colored fire erupted from the radio, creating a ring of fire around Izuku and enveloping him. Shortly after that, the flames vanished, and so did Izuku, making Inko think that her son successfully entered hell. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author MaxX69 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.